I stood frozen in the hospital orientation room, watching my sister Sarah's confident smile crumble as she recognized me. The same sister whose graduation ceremony was deemed more important than my emergency surgery 15 years ago. The room of new residents fell silent as I adjusted my white coat, the embroidered title, Chief of Surgery, catching the fluorescent lights. Sarah's face drained of color. Mom had always said she'd be the successful one. Funny how life has a way of rewriting family narratives. The memory of that June day 15 years ago still visits me during quiet moments in the operating room. I was 18, fresh out of high school, and my younger sister Sarah was graduating as valedictorian. The whole family had been in celebration mode for weeks. Mom had ordered matching outfits for the photos. Dad had reserved a table at the fanciest restaurant in town, and relatives were flying in from across the country. The pain started 3 days before the ceremony. At first, it was just a dull ache in my lower right abdomen that I attributed to stress. College acceptance letters had arrived, and I was trying to figure out how to tell my parents I'd chosen pre-med when they'd always assumed I'd go into teaching like Mom. Sarah had already announced her plans for business school, which thrilled them. By the second day, the pain had intensified. I could barely stand straight, and waves of nausea kept hitting me. When I mentioned it at breakfast, Mom didn't even look up from the graduation program she was reviewing. "Take some ibuprofen," she said. "We don't have time for doctor visits this week." Dad nodded in agreement. "Your sister only graduates once. Whatever this is can wait until next week." I drove myself to the emergency room that afternoon while everyone was at Sarah's final rehearsal. The triage nurse took my vitals and noted my elevated temperature and white blood cell count. But when the ER doctor heard I was there alone and learned about the graduation, he gave me a knowing look. "Lot of stress in your family right now?" he asked. I nodded, clutching my side. "Graduation weeks are always busy. This is probably just anxiety manifesting physically. You'd be surprised how common this is with siblings of high achievers." He prescribed mild pain medication and sent me home with instructions to rest and stay hydrated. I wanted to protest, to insist something was genuinely wrong, but years of being labeled the dramatic one in my family had taught me to doubt my own instincts. The next evening, less than 12 hours before Sarah's ceremony, the pain became unbearable. I was curled on my bedroom floor, drenched in sweat, when I heard the family getting ready for the pre-graduation dinner at my grandmother's house. "Christa, hurry up," Mom called from downstairs. "We're leaving in 5 minutes." I managed to crawl to the door and crack it open. "I can't. Something's really wrong." Mom appeared at the bottom of the stairs, her face tight with irritation. She'd already styled her hair and put on the new dress she'd bought specifically for the photos. "Not today, Christa. I don't care what kind of attention you think you need, but you will not ruin your sister's moment. Take your medication and get dressed." "Mom, please, I think I need to go back to the hospital." She climbed halfway up the stairs, and I'll never forget the coldness in her eyes. "Your sister's graduation is more important than your imaginary illness. We've put too much into this day for you to sabotage it with another one of your episodes." I tried to stand to show her how serious this was, but the movement sent such a sharp pain through my abdomen that I collapsed back to the floor. She shook her head in disgust. "Fine, stay home and sulk, but don't expect us to cancel our plans because you can't handle your sister getting attention." The front door slammed 20 minutes later. I heard Dad's car pull out of the driveway, then silence. The house felt impossibly large and empty. I managed to drag myself back to bed, telling myself I just needed to make it through the night. Tomorrow, after the graduation, someone would help me. But my body had other plans. Around 10 that night, the pain shifted from sharp to explosive. I felt something inside me tear, followed by a spreading fire that made me scream into my pillow. I reached for my phone, but my vision kept blurring. The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was thinking how angry Mom would be if I died and overshadowed Sarah's big day. I woke up briefly in an ambulance, an oxygen mask over my face, and two paramedics working above me. Through the haze, I heard one of them say something about peritonitis and emergency surgery. The sirens wailed as we sped through the night, and I found myself wondering if my family had noticed I wasn't answering their texts from the dinner. Later, I learned it was Mrs. Peterson, our 80-year-old neighbor, who saved my life. She'd seen the family leave and noticed my bedroom light stayed on all night. When her cat got out the next morning and ran into our yard, she'd come to retrieve him and heard me moaning through the open window. She used the spare key she knew we kept under the garden gnome and found me unconscious, burning with fever, my abdomen distended and rigid. The surgery took 4 hours. My appendix hadn't just ruptured. It had been leaking infected fluid into my abdominal cavity for hours. Dr. Martinez, the head of emergency surgery, would later tell me that another 60 minutes and they might not have been able to save me. The infection had spread so aggressively that they had to wash out my entire peritoneal cavity and leave drains in place. I have no memory of Sarah's graduation ceremony. While she walked across the stage to collect her diplomas and awards, I was in the ICU machines breathing for me fighting sepsis. While my parents posed for professional photos in the high school garden, a team of doctors was discussing whether I'd need a second surgery. While extended family toasted Sarah's achievements at the restaurant, Mrs. Peterson sat in the waiting room, having listed herself as my emergency contact when she couldn't reach my parents. They didn't arrive at the hospital until nearly 6 that evening. I was conscious by then, though still groggy from pain medication. Through the door's window, I could see them in the hallway, still dressed in their graduation finery. Mom's corsage was wilting, and Dad kept checking his watch. Sarah wasn't with them. When they finally entered, the first words out of Mom's mouth weren't about my condition or how I was feeling. Instead, she sighed heavily and said, "Well, you certainly found a way to make today about you, didn't you?" The fluorescent lights in the hospital room seemed to pulse with each heartbeat as I stared at my parents. Dad stood behind Mom, his hands in his pockets, looking everywhere but at me. They'd been in my room for less than 2 minutes, and already I felt worse than I had when my appendix burst. The ceremony was beautiful. Mom continued adjusting her pearl necklace. Sarah won 5 awards. 5 the principal said he'd never seen such an accomplished student. Everyone asked where you were. "I almost died," I whispered, my throat still raw from the intubation tube. Dad finally spoke up. "The doctors always say that. It's their way of making sure insurance covers everything. I'm sure it wasn't as serious as they're making it sound." Mrs. Peterson, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, suddenly stood up. Her weathered hands gripped her purse tightly as she faced my parents. "I found your daughter unconscious in a pool of her own vomit. Her lips were blue. The paramedics said her blood pressure was dangerously low. How dare you minimize what she's been through?" Mom's face flushed. "I don't appreciate being lectured by someone who doesn't understand our family dynamics. Christa has a history of dramatizing situations for attention." "What history?" Mrs. Peterson challenged. "The time she broke her wrist, and you made her wait 3 days before taking her for an x-ray, or when she had pneumonia junior year, and you accused her of faking to get out of Sarah's piano recital." "Those are private family matters," Dad interjected, finally making eye contact with me. "Christa knows we love her. We're here now, aren't we?" "After your party," I managed to say. "After the dinner, after the photos. I've been out of surgery for 8 hours. "We had obligations," Mom said stiffly. "Family came from out of state. We couldn't just abandon them." The word abandon hung in the air. That's exactly what they'd done to me, but somehow in their minds, the real abandonment would have been leaving Sarah's celebration. Mrs. Peterson sat back down and took my hand. Her touch was gentle, maternal in a way I'd never felt from my own mother. "I'll give you some privacy," she said softly, but I gripped her hand tighter. "Oh, please stay," I whispered. My parents exchanged a look I knew well. It was the same expression they shared whenever I disappointed them by not falling in line with their expectations. Mom glanced at her watch, a delicate gold piece Dad had given her for their 20th anniversary. "We can only stay a few more minutes anyway," she announced. "Sarah's celebration dinner is at 7, and we need to go home and change. The Hendersons are hosting, and you know how particular they are about punctuality." "There's another dinner," I asked, disbelief cutting through my medication fog. "Well, yes," Dad said, as if this should have been obvious. "The family dinner was last night. Tonight is for Sarah's friends and their families. Tomorrow, there's a brunch with the Honor Society." "I see," I said quietly. "And when were you planning to come back here?" Mom was already gathering her purse. "Oh, I'm sure you'll be discharged soon. These hospitals never keep anyone longer than necessary. We'll see you at home in a day or two." Dr. Martinez chose that moment to enter the room. She was a tall woman with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun. Her scrubs were fresh, but I could see the fatigue in her eyes from what had probably been a long shift. She looked at my parents, then at Mrs. Peterson, clearly assessing the situation. "Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "I'm Dr. Martinez. I performed your daughter's surgery." Mom stepped forward with the same smile she used for PTA meetings. "Doctor, we were just saying how grateful we are for your care. When can Christa come home?" Dr. Martinez's expression remained professionally neutral, but I caught the slight tightening around her eyes. "Your daughter won't be going home for at least a week, possibly 2. She's lucky to be alive." "Surely that's an exaggeration," Dad said. "It was just appendicitis." The doctor's voice took on an edge of steel. It was a ruptured appendix that led to severe peritonitis. We removed over a liter of infected fluid from her abdominal cavity. She was in septic shock when she arrived. Her organs were beginning to shut down. If your neighbor hadn't found her when she did, you'd be planning a funeral instead of attending graduation parties. The color drained from Mom's face, but not for the reason Dr. Martinez might have expected. "A week or 2, but I've already told everyone she'll be at Sarah's college send-off party next weekend." I felt something break inside me, then something that had nothing to do with my surgical incisions. My near-death experience was being measured against party attendance, and I was once again found wanting. "I think you should leave," Mrs. Peterson said, suddenly standing up again. "Christa needs rest, not guilt trips about missing social events." "How dare you?" Mom spun toward her. "You have no right to insert yourself into our family business." "Someone needs to," Mrs. Peterson replied calmly, "since you seem to have forgotten that you have 2 daughters, not just one." Dad took Mom's elbow. "Come on, Patricia. We're going to be late." He looked at me one more time, and for just a moment, I thought I saw something like regret in his eyes. "Feel better, Christa. We'll check in later." They left without hugging me, without asking if I needed anything, without even saying goodbye properly. I heard Mom's heels clicking down the hallway, her voice carrying, as she complained to Dad about Mrs. Peterson's interference. Dr. Martinez closed the door and pulled a chair close to my bed. "I'm going to be honest with you, Christa. The next few days are going to be difficult. You're fighting a serious infection and your body has been through significant trauma. Do you have anyone who can be here with you? Other family members who can take shifts?" I shook my head, tears finally spilling over. "It's just my parents and Sarah, and they have celebrations to attend." "I'll stay," Mrs. Peterson said firmly. "I don't have anywhere else to be." Dr. Martinez nodded slowly. "I'm going to have our social worker stop by tomorrow. There are resources available for situations like this." She paused, seeming to weigh her next words carefully. "I grew up in a similar family dynamic. My younger brother was the golden child. I understand how isolating it can feel, especially during a medical crisis." After she left, Mrs. Peterson helped me adjust my pillows and tuck the thin hospital blanket around me like I was a child. She'd raised 4 children of her own, all grown now, with families scattered across the country. "Why are you being so kind to me?" I asked through my tears. She smiled sadly. "Because everyone deserves to have someone in their corner, especially when they're hurting. Your parents. They're so blinded by one star that they can't see the other one right in front of them. Sarah finally visited 2 days later. I was still in significant pain, antibiotics running through my IV to combat the lingering infection. She breezed in, wearing a new outfit, probably purchased with graduation money, carrying a small grocery store bouquet that looked like an afterthought. "Ah, God, Christa, you look terrible," were her first words. She set the flowers on the windowsill without looking for water. Everyone at the graduation dinner was talking about how you managed to cause drama even when you weren't there. "I had emergency surgery," I said flatly. She rolled her eyes. "I know that, but the timing? Come on, you couldn't have held out one more day." "You think I chose this?" "I think you've always resented that I'm better at everything," Sarah said, examining her manicured nails. "This is just like when you pretended to have the flu during my National Honor Society induction." "I had a 103-degree fever." "Whatever." She glanced around the room with obvious distaste. "This place is depressing. How much longer are you going to milk this?" "The doctor says at least another week. Maybe more if the infection doesn't clear up." Sarah sighed dramatically. "Great. So you're going to miss my college send-off too. Mom's going to be so disappointed. She already had to make excuses for you at 3 different events." I stared at my younger sister, really seeing her for perhaps the first time. She was beautiful, accomplished, and utterly devoid of empathy. Our parents had created a monster, feeding her ego while starving me of basic affection. But recognizing it didn't make it hurt any less. "I'm sorry my near-death experience is inconveniencing your social calendar," I said quietly. She missed the sarcasm entirely. "Well, at least you understand. I should go. I'm meeting friends for lunch to celebrate my scholarship announcement." She left without saying goodbye, just like our parents. I lay there in the silence afterward, listening to the steady beep of my monitors and the distant sounds of the hospital around me. Other patients had streams of visitors, their rooms filled with balloons and cards and laughter. Mine had Mrs. Peterson's steadfast presence and nothing else. That evening, as Mrs. Peterson dozed in her chair, I made a decision. When I got out of this hospital, I would stop waiting for my family to see me, to value me, to love me the way they loved Sarah. I would build a life where my worth wasn't measured against my sister's achievements. I didn't know how yet, but I knew it had to start with accepting a truth I'd spent 18 years denying. In my family's story, I would always be the antagonist to Sarah's heroine. The realization should have broken me. Instead, lying there with surgical drains still protruding from my abdomen, I felt something like freedom. Dr. Martinez had a way of entering my hospital room that was different from the other doctors. While they burst in with entourages of residents and medical students, she came alone, usually during the quiet hours when the ward settled into its nighttime rhythm. On my 5th day post-surgery, she arrived just as Mrs. Peterson was packing up to go home for a few hours of rest. "How's your pain level today?" she asked, pulling up the rolling stool that had become her preferred seat during our talks. "Manageable," I replied, though we both knew I was understating it. The infection was stubborn, requiring IV antibiotics that made me nauseous and dizzy. She reviewed my chart on her tablet, then set it aside. "Your white cell count is finally trending down. That's good news, but I'm not here to talk about your medical progress." I shifted carefully, trying not to disturb the drainage tubes. "Oh, I've been practicing medicine for 22 years, she said, folding her hands in her lap. "I've seen every type of family dynamic walk through these doors. Parents who sleep in chairs for weeks, siblings who organize meal trains, children who fly across the country to be at a bedside. And then there are families like yours." Heat crept up my neck. "They're just busy with Sarah's achievements." "Stop," Dr. Martinez said gently but firmly. "Don't make excuses for people who can't be bothered to check if you're alive. I watched your mother spend 15 minutes in the gift shop downstairs yesterday, looking at congratulations cards for your sister, then leave without coming to see you." The knowledge that Mom had been in the building but couldn't spare even 5 minutes for me felt like another incision opening up. You saw that. I was grabbing coffee. She was with another woman talking about how difficult it's been to juggle Sarah's celebration schedule with your little health scare. I closed my eyes, willing the tears not to fall. I was so tired of crying, tired of hoping, tired of being disappointed by people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Christa, Dr. Martinez continued, I need you to understand something. The way your family treats you is not normal, and it's not acceptable, but more importantly, it's not your fault. How do you know? The question came out sharper than I intended. She smiled sadly. Because I lived it. My younger brother Carlos was the star. Soccer champion, straight A's, charming smile that could get him out of any trouble. I was the quiet one who loved science and books. When I got into medical school, my parents asked if I could defer enrollment to help pay for Carlos's training camp in Europe. Did you? No, and they didn't speak to me for 2 years because of it. Missed my white coat ceremony, my graduation, the day I matched into my residency. It wasn't until Carlos tore his ACL and his soccer career ended that they suddenly remembered they had another child. Mrs. Peterson, who had been listening quietly while gathering her things, spoke up. Good for you for choosing yourself. Too many young people sacrifice their dreams for family members who wouldn't do the same in return. Dr. Martinez nodded. Which brings me to why I'm really here. Christa, have you thought about what you want to do after you recover? I fidgeted with the hospital bracelet around my wrist. My parents expect me to go to state university. They've already paid the deposit for elementary education. That's what they want. What do you want? The question hung in the air like a challenge. What did I want? I'd spent so long trying to be the daughter my parents might notice, might appreciate, that I'd never really asked myself that question. But lying in this hospital bed, abandoned by my family while fighting for my life, something had crystallized. I think I started, then stopped. This is going to sound crazy. Try me, Dr. Martinez encouraged. Being here, seeing what you and the other doctors do, how you saved my life when my own family couldn't be bothered to notice I was dying. I want to do that. I want to be the person who shows up when others don't. I want to study medicine. Mrs. Peterson clapped her hands together. Oh, honey, that's not crazy at all. You'd make a wonderful doctor. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. It's a difficult path. Long hours, enormous debt years of training, and doing it without family support makes it even harder. I'm already without family support, I pointed out. At least this way I'd be working towards something meaningful. She studied me for a long moment. The deadline for State University's pre-med program has passed, but I know the director. If you're serious about this, I can make a call. Your hospital stay would actually work in your favor. Nothing shows dedication to medicine quite like choosing it after experiencing it from the patient's side. Hope bloomed in my chest for the first time since my surgery. You do that for me. I'll do more than that. If you get in and maintain your grades, I'll write your recommendation letters for medical school when the time comes. But Christa, I need you to understand something first. Are you choosing medicine to prove something to your family? I thought about it carefully. Maybe a little, I admitted. But mostly I'm choosing it because this week has shown me what I want to be. Someone who saves lives. Someone who pays attention when others look away. Someone who helps people on their worst days. Good answer. She pulled out her phone. I'll make that call tonight. In the meantime, we need to talk about the other elephant in the room, your medical bills. My stomach clenched. With everything else, I'd managed to push the financial reality to the back of my mind. Insurance should cover most of it, right? Your parents' insurance will cover about 70%. But between the emergency surgery, the ICU stay, the extended antibiotics, and the monitoring, you're looking at significant out-of-pocket costs. Have your parents discussed this with you? They haven't discussed anything with me. Mrs. Peterson made a disgusted sound. They should be handling this. She's still on their insurance, still their dependent. Legally, yes. Dr. Martinez agreed. Morally, well, we've established where they stand. Christa, the financial counselor, will come by tomorrow to discuss options. Payment plans, charity care applications, things like that. But I want you to know that several of the nurses have been talking. They've seen your situation and they want to help. What do you mean? Let's just say that the nursing staff here has a long memory for patients who touch their hearts. And a teenager abandoned by her family during a medical crisis, that's touched more than a few hearts. 2 days later, I understood what she meant. My day nurse Jennifer came in with a coffee can decorated with ribbons and a sign that read, Team Christa. Inside were bills of various denominations, change, and even a few checks. Oh, we've been passing it around during shift changes, she explained. Emergency surgery staff, ICU nurses, even some of the janitors contributed. It won't cover everything, but it should help with the immediate costs. I stared at the can, overwhelmed. I don't understand. Why would strangers do this for me? Jennifer sat on the edge of my bed. Because we've watched Mrs. Peterson here every day while your family can't be bothered. Because Dr. Martinez told us you want to go into medicine. Because sometimes the family you choose chooses you back. The next morning brought another surprise. The hospital's financial counselor, Mr. Thompson, arrived with a stack of papers and an unexpected smile. I've been reviewing your case, he said. Given your age, your family situation, and your academic plans, you qualify for our hardship program. If you maintain a part-time job and volunteer here at the hospital for 10 hours a week once you're recovered, we can reduce your bill by 85%. Are you serious? Completely. Dr. Martinez vouched for you, and that carries weight here. Plus, volunteering will give you clinical experience for your medical school applications. Mrs. Peterson squeezed my hand. See, when one door closes, sometimes a whole hallway of doors opens. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Sarah's send-off party is tomorrow at 2. I suppose you still can't make it. I stared at the message for a long time. 2 weeks ago, I would have apologized profusely, maybe even tried to convince the doctors to discharge me early so I could attend. Now I simply typed back, no, I'll be reviewing scholarship applications with the financial counselor. Her response was immediate. Of course you are, always making things difficult. I deleted the message without responding. Around me, machines beeped steadily, nurses changed shifts with warm greetings, and Mrs. Peterson worked on her crossword puzzle in the afternoon sun. This makeshift family of medical professionals and an elderly neighbor had shown me more care in a week than my biological family had in 18 years. Dr. Martinez stopped by during her evening rounds. I heard from my colleague at State. They're willing to review your application for the pre-med track. You'll need to write an essay about your experience and why you're changing paths. Thank you, I said the words, feeling inadequate. For everything. She patted my shoulder. Pay it forward someday. That's all I ask. As she left, I thought about all the sick, scared teenagers who might one day cross my path. The ones with families who couldn't see past their own priorities. The ones who felt invisible in their own homes. If I could become half the doctor Elena Martinez was, maybe I could be for them what she'd been for me, proof that not all families are bound by blood, and sometimes the most profound connections come from the most unexpected places. That night, I started writing my essay on my phone, pecking out words between medication doses and vital sign checks. The first line came easily. I discovered my calling not in a classroom or at a career fair, but lying in a hospital bed, abandoned by my family and saved by strangers who showed me what real care looks like. The August heat shimmered off the parking lot as Mrs. Peterson helped me into her ancient sedan. After 16 days in the hospital, everything felt too bright, too loud, too vast. My incision sites pulled with each movement, a reminder that healing was far from complete. In the back seat sat a small box of my belongings and a folder thick with medical forms, volunteer paperwork, and information about State University's pre-med program. "Your parents still don't know you're being discharged today?" Mrs. Peterson asked as she carefully navigated out of the hospital complex. "I texted Mom yesterday. She said they're at Sarah's freshman orientation weekend." I adjusted the seatbelt to avoid pressing on my still tender abdomen. "She asked if I could take an Uber." Mrs. Peterson's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "That girl doesn't deserve you." The drive to my parents' house took 20 minutes. Each familiar street sign felt like a countdown to a confrontation I wasn't ready for. But when we pulled into the driveway, the house stood empty. No cars, no welcome home sign, no acknowledgement that their daughter had nearly died and spent over 2 weeks in the hospital. A note on the kitchen counter confirmed what I already knew. "Christa, we're at State University with Sarah through Monday. There's food in the fridge. Try not to overdo it. Mom." I stood there swaying slightly from the exertion of walking inside, staring at my mother's careful handwriting. Not "Love, Mom," just "Mom." Even that small endearment was apparently too much when it came to me. "You're not staying here alone," Mrs. Peterson declared. "Pack a bag. You're coming to my house until you're stronger." I can't impose. It's not imposing when I'm offering. Besides, my guest room has been empty since my grandson moved to Portland. It'll be nice to have company. That night, lying in Mrs. Peterson's guest bed surrounded by quilts she'd made for grandchildren, I finally let myself think about the future. The hospital bills, even reduced, would require money I didn't have. The pre-med program Dr. Martinez had helped me access would mean changing my entire academic plan, and doing it all while recovering from major surgery and dealing with the emotional aftermath of my family's abandonment felt impossible. But impossible was better than invisible. I'd take difficult over dismissed any day. The next morning brought my first challenge. To qualify for the hospital's financial assistance program, I needed to find part-time work immediately. My savings account held $243, and my parents had made it clear they wouldn't help with any medical expenses beyond what insurance covered. "What kind of job can I even do?" I asked Mrs. Peterson over breakfast. "I can't lift anything heavy for at least 6 weeks. I can barely stand for more than 20 minutes without getting dizzy." She thoughtfully buttered her toast. "My friend Margaret manages the campus bookstore at State. They always need cashiers, especially with the semester starting. Sitting job mostly. I'll give her a call." By the end of the week, I had 20 hours scheduled at the bookstore and my volunteer shifts set up at the hospital. For once I was cleared. It wasn't much, but it was a start. My parents returned from Sarah's orientation full of stories about her dorm, her roommate, the special honors program she'd been selected for. They seemed surprised to find me gone, but not concerned enough to call. The first day of classes arrived with an unexpected obstacle. I'd managed to switch my major to pre-med, but the textbooks for organic chemistry, biology, and physics totaled over $800. My bookstore employee discount helped, but not enough. I stood in the store aisle, calculator in hand, trying to figure out which books I could delay purchasing. "Rough calculations?" a voice beside me asked. I looked up to see a guy about my age with rumpled hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. His name tag identified him as Marcus, student manager. "Something like that," I admitted. He glanced at my list. "Pre-med tough schedule for a freshman." "I'm making up for lost time." "Tell you what," he said, pulling out his phone. "I graduated last year, still have all these books. They're one edition old, but the content's basically the same. $100 for the lot." "Are you serious?" "Consider it a welcome to the struggle gift. Pre-med students need to stick together. I'm applying to medical schools now, so I know how brutal the financial side can be." That evening, I sat at Mrs. Peterson's kitchen table surrounded by slightly worn textbooks that smelled like coffee and determination. My phone buzzed with a message in the family group chat. A photo of Sarah's beautifully decorated dorm room with the caption, "Our college girl is all settled in, so proud." I turned my phone face down and opened my organic chemistry textbook. Chapter 1: The Foundations of Life. Fitting, I thought, as I began building my new foundation one page at a time. The weeks fell into a rhythm. Classes from 8 to noon, bookstore shifts in the afternoon, studying until my eyes burned. My incision sites healed slowly, the scars forming pink lines across my abdomen. Physical therapy helped with the residual weakness, though I often had to rest between classes, finding quiet corners where I could sit and catch my breath. "You're pushing too hard," Marcus warned one afternoon as I nearly dozed off at the register. "Recovery takes time." "I don't have time," I replied. "I'm already behind everyone else who started pre-med as freshmen. Plus, I need the hours for my bills." He frowned. "What about your parents? Aren't they helping?" "They're busy with my sister's college transition." I said, the excuse automatic now. "For 2 months. I shrugged, focusing on scanning returned textbooks. I'd learned it was easier to deflect than explain family dynamics that most people couldn't understand. October brought an unexpected blow. I was finally feeling stronger, managing my schedule without quite as much exhaustion, when I received a text from my cousin Emma. "Just saw your sister's Instagram story. She's saying you faked being sick to avoid her graduation. That's messed up." I opened Instagram with trembling fingers. Sarah had posted a series of photos from her graduation day with a long caption about overcoming family drama and not letting attention-seeking behavior dim her shine. The comments were full of support for her, condemning the unnamed family member who'd tried to sabotage her special day. The worst part was a reply from our Aunt Linda. "Some people just can't stand to see others succeed. You rose above it, sweetie." I screen capped everything and closed the app, my stomach churning. It wasn't enough that my family had abandoned me during a medical crisis. Now, Sarah was rewriting history, turning my near-death experience into a character flaw. Mrs. Peterson found me crying on her porch swing that evening. She read the posts over my shoulder, her face growing stonier with each word. "You should set the record straight," she said firmly. "Post your hospital photos, your surgical scars, the truth." "What's the point?" I asked. "They'll just say I'm trying to steal attention again. That's always the story. Sarah Shine's eye scheme. It's easier to believe than the truth." "Which is?" "That they love her more, that they always have. That if I had died that night, their biggest concern would have been how it affected Sarah's celebration." Mrs. Peterson pulled me into a hug, her cardigan soft against my cheek. "Their inability to love you properly is not a reflection of your worth. You remember that." But remembering was hard when extended family members began reaching out, their messages varying from disappointed to outright hostile. Uncle Robert was the only one who seemed skeptical of Sarah's version. His message was brief. "I'd like to hear your side. Something doesn't add up." I video called him that weekend, showing him my scars, my medical bills, the volunteer schedule I was maintaining to reduce my debt. His face grew paler with each detail. "My God, Christa, I had no idea. Sarah said you had minor stomach issues that you exaggerated." "My appendix ruptured. I nearly died from sepsis. Mrs. Peterson found me unconscious because my family was at Sarah's graduation dinner." He was quiet for a long moment. "I'm a doctor, Christa. I know what peritonitis looks like. I know the survival rates when it's caught late. I'm sorry I believed her version without questioning it." "Everyone believes Sarah's versions," I said tiredly. "She's the golden child. I'm just the difficult one." "Not to me. Not anymore." He paused. "Are you managing financially? I know medical bills can be overwhelming." "I'm working it out. Part-time job payment plans, volunteer hours at the hospital." "Send me the information for your payment plan. I want to help." "Uncle Robert, I can't." "You can and you will. Consider it an apology for not seeing what was happening sooner. And Christa, don't let their narrative define you. You're pre-med." "Yes." "Good. We need doctors who understand suffering from the inside out. You'll have empathy your sisters would never develop. After we hung up, I sat with his words. Maybe that was the gift hidden in all this pain, the ability to see others who were invisible in their own families, to recognize the signs I displayed and act on them instead of dismissing them. My phone buzzed with another text from Mom. Sarah made the dean's list. We're taking her to celebrate this weekend. Hope your little job is going well. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my biochemistry textbook and lost myself in metabolic pathways and enzyme functions. Each concept I mastered felt like a step away from the girl who'd waited for scraps of approval that would never come. The semester progressed, and with it came small victories. An A on my first organic chemistry exam, a compliment from my biology professor on my lab work, a regular customer at the bookstore who always asked how my studies were going. None of it erased the pain of my family's indifference, but it built something new, a sense of self that didn't depend on their validation. One evening in November, as I was organizing my medical school research, Mrs. Peterson knocked on my door. "There's someone here to see you," she said, her expression unreadable. I found Sarah standing in the living room, looking uncomfortable in designer jeans and a State University hoodie. She was thinner than I remembered her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "What are you doing here?" I asked, not moving from the doorway. "I need to talk to you about the pre-med program." My blood ran cold. "What about it?" "I'm thinking of switching majors. Business is boring. Mom and Dad think medicine would be more prestigious." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. When none came, I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that surprised us both. "You want to go into medicine? You couldn't even visit me in the hospital without complaining about the smell." "That's different. I wasn't prepared, but I've been thinking about it, and really, how hard can it be you're doing it? And you're not exactly the academic star of the family." Something inside me, some last thread of hope that my sister might see me as more than competition, finally snapped. "Get out," I said quietly. "Excuse me." "Get out of this house. Go back to your dorm, your dean's list, your perfect life. But you don't get to follow me into medicine. You don't get to take the one thing I'm building for myself." "You can't own an entire career field, Christa. If I want to be pre-med, then do it on your own merit. Write your own essay about why you want to help people. Take organic chemistry and see how boring you find it when you're memorizing reaction mechanisms at 3 in the morning. Volunteer at the hospital and discover what blood and vomit and death really smell like. But don't you dare come here asking for my help or my notes or my connections." Sarah's face flushed. "I wasn't asking for your help. I just thought you should know as a courtesy." "No, you came here to see if I'd roll over like I always have. If I'd help you succeed in my own field just to keep the family peace. But I'm done, Sarah. I'm done making myself smaller so you can feel bigger." She left without another word, slamming Mrs. Peterson's door hard enough to rattle the windows. I knew there would be consequences. Angry texts from our parents, more family drama, more stories about how difficult I was. But for the first time, I didn't care. That night, I wrote in my journal, "Today, I chose myself." It felt like performing my own surgery, painful but necessary. Some things need to be cut away for healing to begin. The next morning brought the expected fallout. 17 missed calls from mom, texts from dad about family loyalty, and a Facebook post from Sarah about toxic siblings who can't support your dreams. I blocked them all and went to my organic chemistry class. Professor Williams was lecturing on chirality in molecules, how two things could have the same components but be mirror images impossible to superimpose. Like Sarah and me, I thought. Same family, same genes, but fundamentally different orientations to the world. And for the first time, I was grateful for the difference. Winter semester brought a new intensity to my studies. My body had finally healed from the surgery, though the scars across my abdomen served as daily reminders of how much had changed. I'd moved from Mrs. Peterson's guest room to a tiny studio apartment near campus, paying rent with my bookstore earnings and the occasional tutoring session for struggling freshmen. The pre-med track was brutal. While other students complained about the workload, I found a strange comfort in the difficulty. Every late night in the library, every complex mechanism I mastered, every perfect score on a lab practical felt like building blocks in a fortress of my own making. A fortress my family couldn't breach with their indifference or Sarah's competitive mimicry. Professor Williams noticed my dedication first. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who ran her organic chemistry lectures like a boot camp for future doctors. One Thursday afternoon, she called me to her office. "Christa, I've been reviewing your exam scores," she said, gesturing for me to sit. 3 consecutive hundreds. That's rare in my class. I study hard. I replied, unsure where this was heading. "It's more than that. Your lab reports show real insight. You're not just memorizing, you're understanding. Have you thought about research opportunities?" My heart jumped. Research experience was golden for medical school applications. I'd love to, but I work 20 hours a week at the bookstore. I need the income. She leaned back, studying me. "What if I could offer you a paid research position? Same hours, better pay, and actual experience in your field. I have grant funding for a project on novel antibiotic synthesis." "Are you serious?" "Completely. The work is demanding, but I think you're ready for it. Plus," she added with a knowing look, "Marcus mentioned your situation. We take care of our own in the sciences." By February, I was spending my afternoons in Professor Williams' lab instead of behind a cash register. The work was challenging. Precise measurements, detailed protocols, endless documentation. But I loved every minute. Here, in the controlled environment of beakers and spectrometers, success depended solely on my effort and ability. Sarah's attempts to join the pre-med program I learned through campus gossip had hit immediate obstacles. She'd failed her first chemistry exam and dropped the course during the withdrawal period. The girl who'd coasted through high school on charm and natural intelligence discovered that organic chemistry didn't care about her graduation awards. I was pipetting samples one afternoon when my phone buzzed with an unexpected call. Uncle Robert. "Christa, I hope I'm not interrupting your classes." "Just research. Is everything okay?" "I wanted to share something. I've been doing some digging since our last conversation. Did you know your grandmother left education funds for both you and Sarah?" I nearly dropped the pipette. "What?" $20,000 each, specifically designated for higher education. Your parents never mentioned it." "No, never." My mind raced. 20,000 would cover so much. Books, living expenses, maybe even some of my medical debt. "The funds are in a trust your parents control. They've already accessed Sarah's portion for her expenses. Yours remains untouched." "Let me guess. They're saving it for something more important." Actually, Uncle Robert's voice carried an edge. "They tried to transfer it to Sarah's account last month. I'm the secondary trustee. I blocked it." I had to sit down on the lab stool. "They tried to give my education money to Sarah." Their argument was that since you're managing on your own, Sarah needed it more. Something about business school being more expensive than state university. I told them that wasn't how trusts work. "Uncle Robert, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll let me help you access it. You'll need my signature as co-trustee, but that money is rightfully yours. Your grandmother would be appalled to know they kept it from you." That evening, I met with Uncle Robert at a coffee shop near the hospital where he worked. He'd brought all the documentation, original trust papers, bank statements, even emails between him and my parents about the funds. "This is dated 3 years ago," I said, reading through the papers. "They've known about this money since I was 15. Your grandmother set it up when you were born. The funds became accessible when each of you turned 18. He pulled out another document. "This is the email your mother sent me last month, asking me to approve the transfer to Sarah." I read it with growing disbelief. Mom had written about Sarah's exceptional promise and how it would be wasteful to let my portion sit unused when I was content with my simple path. Oh, simple path? I laughed bitterly. I'm pre-med. I'm doing research. I work constantly to pay for everything myself. Which is exactly why I refused. Christa, you need to know something else. I've been talking to other family members since learning the truth about your surgery. Your Aunt Linda is mortified. She had no idea what really happened. Sarah's been controlling the narrative, but cracks are starting to show. It doesn't matter, I said, though part of me was glad the truth was emerging. I've moved on. Have you? He studied me with doctor's eyes. When's the last time you went to a family gathering? Thanksgiving. I wasn't invited. His face darkened. You weren't? Christa, I was told you were working. By who? Your mother. She said you'd chosen to work holiday shifts for extra money. I stirred my coffee, watching the cream spiral. Another lie. Another erasure. But this time it didn't sting as much. It's fine. Mrs. Peterson made turkey. We watched old movies. It was actually nice. It's not fine, but I understand why you need to frame it that way. He pushed the trust documents across the table. Sign these. The money will be in your account by Monday. Use it for your education, your living expenses, whatever you need. It's yours. With shaking hands, I signed my name. $20,000 wouldn't solve everything, but it would ease the constant financial pressure. I could reduce my work hours, focus more on research, maybe even afford MCAT prep courses when the time came. Thank you, I whispered, for seeing me, for believing me, for this. Family should mean something, he replied, even when some members forget that. March arrived with unexpected drama. I was in the research lab when Marcus burst in, eyes wide with gossip he couldn't wait to share. You're not going to believe what just happened in the bookstore, he said breathlessly. Someone finally returned that anatomy textbook from 2015. Better, your sister came in with your parents. They wanted to buy you chemistry books. I carefully set down the graduated cylinder I was holding. What? Yeah, they had this whole story about surprising you, wanting to support your studies. Margaret told them you don't work there anymore. Your mom got upset, demanding to know where you'd gone. What did Margaret say? That personnel information was private. Then your dad tried the "we're her parents" card. Margaret, bless her, said if they didn't know where their own daughter worked, that was a family matter, not a bookstore issue. I laughed despite myself. Margaret was a force of nature, 5 feet tall with a grandmother's appearance and a drill sergeant's spine. There's more, Marcus continued. Your sister started asking other employees about you. If you still came in, who you hung out with, what your schedule was like. Jenny told her to leave before she called security. They're investigating me. The thought was both amusing and unsettling. Seems like it. Any idea why? I thought about Uncle Robert's blocked trust transfer, about Sarah's failed pre-med attempt, about the family narrative slowly unraveling. Sarah's probably looking for ammunition, some way to prove I'm the failure they've always said I am. Well, she's going to be disappointed. Everyone knows you're killing it in Williams's lab. Half the sophomore pre-meds want to be you. That evening, the inevitable confrontation came. I was leaving the library when I found my parents waiting by my car. Mom stood with her arms crossed, Dad beside her, looking uncomfortable. Or Christa. Mom began without preamble. We need to discuss your behavior. My behavior. I juggled my backpack and lab notebook, exhausted from a 12-hour day. Which behavior would that be? Don't be smart with us. Robert told us about the trust. You had no right to access that money without discussing it with us first. I had every right. It's my money left to me by Grandma. The only question is why you never told me about it. Dad shifted nervously. We were saving it for the right time. The right time being never, or were you waiting until Sarah needed it? Mom's face flushed. That's exactly the attitude problem we're talking about. Everything is about competition with you. Sarah's struggling in college, and instead of helping your sister, you're hoarding resources. I'm hoarding resources. The absurdity of it made me laugh. I nearly died. You left me alone in a hospital. I've paid my own bills, found my own housing, worked multiple jobs, and earned my place in this program without a penny from you. Meanwhile, Sarah has had everything handed to her and she's still failing. How dare you? How dare I, what Mom tell the truth, succeed, despite your neglect, refuse to sacrifice my future for Sarah's comfort? A small crowd of students had stopped to watch. Mom noticed and lowered her voice. We'll discuss this at home. You'll come to dinner Sunday and we'll sort this out as a family. No. The word hung between us, simple and final. No, Dad echoed. No. We're not a family. We're relatives who share DNA. You made your choice 15 years ago when you decided Sarah mattered more. You've reinforced it every day since. I'm done pretending otherwise. I walked past them to my car, half expecting them to follow. They didn't. In my rearview mirror, I saw them standing in the parking lot, Mom gesticulating wildly while Dad tried to calm her. They looked smaller than I remembered, diminished by distance and perspective. That night, I called Dr. Martinez. She'd given me her number after I started volunteering at the hospital, checking in periodically on my progress. Christa, is everything all right? I told her about the trust fund, the confrontation, the growing chasm between my life and my family's expectations. Good for you, she said when I finished. Setting boundaries isn't easy, especially with family. How are you feeling? Free, I admitted. Scared, angry, but mostly free. Hold on to that feeling. You're going to need it. The path you're on, it's lonely sometimes, but it's yours and that matters. The next week brought a new development. Professor Williams called me into her office with barely contained excitement. I've just heard from a colleague at the state medical school. They're running a summer program for exceptional undergraduate researchers. Full funding room and board included plus a stipend. I want to nominate you. Professor, I'm only a sophomore. So your research is graduate level. Your grades are perfect. More importantly, you have the drive they're looking for. This program could open doors for you. Connections, recommendations, early exposure to medical school faculty. What's the catch? She smiled. No catch, just 8 weeks of intensive research and clinical shadowing. Though I should mention, Sarah applied last month. She was rejected. Apparently, she name-dropped you as her sister, thinking it would help. What? The selection committee found it odd that she couldn't articulate her own qualifications without referencing yours. One of them called me for context. I told them you two were very different students. I signed the application forms with a mix of pride and vindication. Sarah had tried to use our connection when it suited her, after spending years ensuring everyone knew she was the superior sister. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 weeks later, I received my acceptance to the program. The same day, I also received a barrage of texts from extended family members. Sarah had posted on social media about the unfair advantages in academic selection, heavily implying that my success came at her expense. I crafted my own post in response, my first in months, a simple photo of my acceptance letter with the caption, "Excited to join the summer medical research program. Hard work, long nights, and amazing mentors got me here. Grateful for everyone who believed in me, especially Mrs. Peterson and Dr. Martinez. To those facing family challenges while pursuing their dreams, you're not alone and you're stronger than you know." The likes and comments poured in. Fellow pre-med students shared their own stories of family doubt and personal triumph. Uncle Robert commented with a simple, "Proud of you." Even some high school classmates reached out admitting they'd always wondered why I seemed to disappear from family events. But the comment that meant the most came from an unexpected source. Jenny from the bookstore wrote, "I remember when you could barely stand from surgery recovery and still insisted on working your full shift. Watching you transform pain into purpose has been inspiring. Sarah has no idea what she's missing by not knowing the real you." That night, I sat in my small apartment surrounded by textbooks and research papers, my laptop open to the summer program portal. Outside, spring rain drummed against the windows. I thought about the girl who'd lain dying alone in her childhood bedroom less than 2 years ago. She'd been invisible, desperate for scraps of love that would never come. This version of me, scarred but strong, alone but not lonely, choosing medicine not for approval but for purpose. She was visible to the people who mattered. And more importantly, she was visible to herself. My phone buzzed with one final text from Mom. "Sarah's very upset about the summer program. I hope you're happy." I deleted it without responding and went back to studying. I had a biochemistry exam in the morning, and my happiness had nothing to do with Sarah's feelings. For the first time in my life, that felt like freedom. The summer research program transformed everything I thought I knew about medicine. 8 weeks of 18-hour days in cutting-edge laboratories and shadowing physicians at the university hospital solidified my conviction this was my calling. But it also illuminated the mountain I still had to climb. The MCAT loomed ahead like a fortress gate, and unlike my wealthier classmates, I couldn't afford the premium prep courses or private tutors. I returned to campus in August with a plan scratched out in my notebook, self-study with borrowed materials, form a study group with other financially strapped students, and somehow balance preparation with my research job and volunteer hours. The $20,000 from Grandma's Trust had covered my living expenses and some old medical debt, but MCAT prep was a luxury I couldn't justify. $700 for a review course. My friend Amit shook his head as we sat in the library surrounded by MCAT prep books I'd checked out. Plus another $1,000 for practice tests. It's like they want to keep poor kids out of medicine. Then we'll have to be smarter than the rich kids, I said, organizing our study materials. Not just harder working, smarter. We recruited 3 others: Jennifer, a first-generation college student supporting her younger siblings; David, whose parents had disowned him for being gay; and Maria, who sent half her work earnings to her family in Texas. Together, we formed what we half-jokingly called the Broke Pre-Med Brigade. Our study sessions started at 5 a.m. in the library's basement, the only time we could all meet before our various jobs and classes. I led the chemistry and biochemistry reviews Amit handled. Physics, Jennifer covered psychology and sociology. David managed biology, and Maria organized our practice tests from outdated prep books and free online resources. The exhaustion was bone deep. I'd stumble from pre-dawn study group to morning research work, then afternoon classes, evening volunteer shifts at the hospital, and late-night solo review. Weekends meant longer study sessions and picking up extra research hours for pay. My apartment became a cave I visited only to shower and grab a few hours of sleep. In October, just as our MCAT preparation was intensifying, chaos arrived in the form of a security alert from my university email. Someone had attempted to access my account multiple times from an unrecognized IP address. The IT department traced it to a computer at Sarah's college. "She's trying to hack into your email," Maria asked during our study break. "That's actually insane." "She probably wants my research notes," I said, though my hand shook as I changed all my passwords. "Or information about the summer program. She's always been competitive, but this is new." David looked up from his biology flashcards. "This is beyond competitive. This is criminal. You should report it." I considered it. The IT security team had offered to pursue the matter formally, but I knew how that would play out. Family explosions, Sarah playing victim parents, demanding I drop charges to preserve their image. I didn't have the emotional bandwidth for that drama while preparing for the most important test of my life. "I'll just upgrade my security and document everything," I decided. Right now, the MCAT matters more than Sarah's issues. But the hacking attempt wasn't isolated. Over the next week, strange things started happening. My study group reservation at the library was mysteriously canceled. Someone called my research lab claiming to be me and tried to resign my position. False noise complaints were filed about my apartment. Each incident was minor deniable, but the pattern was clear. "She's trying to sabotage you," Mrs. Peterson said when I told her over tea. I'd started visiting her every Sunday, the one break I allowed myself from studying. "This isn't sibling rivalry anymore, dear. This is targeted harassment." "I know, but what can I do if I confront my parents? They'll say I'm paranoid or jealous. If I go to authorities, it becomes a legal matter that could affect my medical school applications. Sarah knows I'm trapped." Mrs. Peterson set down her teacup firmly. "Then we document everything and prepare for escalation. I'll install a security camera for your apartment. My nephew is a lawyer. He can advise you pro bono. Don't let her derail your dreams." The breaking point came in November. I was deep in a practice exam when my laptop screen flickered and went black. When it restarted, all my MCAT notes were gone. Months of carefully organized study materials, practice test analyses, and research summaries vanished. My first instinct was panic, then rage, then surprisingly cold clarity. "She made a mistake," Amit said when our study group convened for an emergency meeting. "If she remote accessed your computer, there's a digital trail." Jennifer, who worked part-time in IT support, nodded. "The university takes cybercrime seriously. This isn't just sibling drama anymore. It's a federal offense." I spent the next day with campus IT security watching as they traced the breach. The evidence was damning: remote access from Sarah's college IP address, systematic deletion of files related to MCAT and medical school preparation, and attempted access to my medical school application portals. "We'll need to file a formal report," the IT director said gravely. "This level of unauthorized access is criminal. Do you want to press charges?" I stared at the evidence on his screen. Part of me wanted to protect Sarah, the little sister I'd once helped with homework and played games with before she became the golden child. But that girl was gone, replaced by someone who would destroy my future to protect her own ego. "Yes," I said quietly, "I want to press charges." The next few days blurred together. Campus police took my statement. The lawyer Mrs. Peterson had connected me with reviewed my options. Word somehow reached my parents, resulting in a volcanic voicemail from Mom about family betrayal and ruining Sarah's life over petty jealousy. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my study materials with help from my group. We pooled our resources, shared notes, and worked even harder. The broke pre-med brigade became my family, understanding my situation without judgment. "My parents threatened to cut me off when I came out," David shared one morning as we reviewed organic chemistry mechanisms. "I know it's not the same, but I get the pain of family choosing their comfort over your truth." "My mom cried when I said I wanted to be a doctor instead of marrying young like she did," Maria added. "Sometimes the people who should support us most become our biggest obstacles." The legal process moved forward quietly. Sarah was placed on academic probation at her college pending investigation. My parents hired a lawyer, but the digital evidence was overwhelming. They tried calling me, then showing up at my apartment, but Mrs. Peterson's security camera and a firmly worded letter from my lawyer kept them at bay. In December, 2 weeks before the MCAT, I received an email that made everything worthwhile. The medical school I'd shadowed at during summer had reviewed my research and wanted to interview me for their early assurance program. If accepted, I'd have a guaranteed spot after graduation pending decent MCAT scores. "This is huge," Professor Williams said when I told her. "They only interview 10 undergrads a year for that program. Your research on antibiotic resistance must have impressed them." I wanted to celebrate, but the MCAT loomed. Our study group had relocated to my apartment after more mysterious cancellations of our library reservations. We'd created a schedule where someone was always studying, keeping each other accountable and motivated. 3 days before the exam, Uncle Robert called with an update. The cybercrime investigation is complete. Sarah's been formally charged. She's looking at possible expulsion and criminal penalties. Your parents are begging me to intervene with you. And I told them you're an adult who made a reasonable decision to protect yourself from criminal harassment. I also mentioned that pressing charges shows good judgment. Medical schools want students who handle difficult situations appropriately. Do you think I did the right thing? He was quiet for a moment. Christa, she tried to destroy your future because she couldn't handle your success. You didn't create this situation. You're just refusing to be a victim of it. The night before the MCAT, my study group gathered for final review and moral support. We'd been preparing together for 6 months, sharing resources, quiz questions, and increasingly terrible medical jokes. As we went through last-minute strategies, Jennifer suddenly stood up. I want to say something. Christa, when you started this group, I thought you were just another pre-med gunner looking to pad her resume, but you've shared everything. Your best notes, your time, your knowledge, even while dealing with insane family drama. You could have studied alone and probably done better, but you lifted all of us up. That's the kind of doctor I want to be. The others murmured agreement. I felt tears prick my eyes but blinked them back. Tomorrow needed clear vision and steady hands. We're all going to be doctors, I said firmly. Different specialties, different paths, but doctors nonetheless. And someday, when we're established, we'll create scholarships for students like us. The ones studying at 5 a.m. because they work all day. The ones with families who don't understand or actively sabotage. The ones who succeed not because of their circumstances, but in spite of them. We did a group hug. 5 exhausted, determined students who'd found family in shared struggle. Test day dawned cold and clear. I arrived at the testing center to find Mrs. Peterson waiting outside with a thermos of tea and a brown bag lunch for after. How did you know where? I have my sources, she said with a wink. Now you go in there and show them what a real fighter looks like. Your grandmother would be so proud. The test itself was a marathon. 7.5 hours of questions designed to break spirits and test limits. But every difficult passage, every complex calculation, every critical reasoning puzzle felt like a conversation with my future self, the doctor who'd risen from abandonment to achievement. During breaks, I thought about Sarah. Despite everything, I felt sorry for her. She'd been given every advantage, every opportunity, every ounce of family love and support. Yet here she was facing criminal charges for trying to destroy someone who'd started with nothing. The golden child had tarnished herself in ways our parents would spend years trying to polish away. When I finally emerged from the testing center, drained but oddly exhilarated, I found my entire study group waiting. They'd all finished their tests at different times but stayed to celebrate together. How do you feel? Amit asked. Like I just went 10 rounds with organic chemistry and somehow didn't die, I replied. That's the spirit, David laughed. Come on, there's a terrible diner nearby that serves pancakes 24/7. First round's on me. As we piled into Jennifer's ancient van, my phone buzzed with texts, some from supportive classmates, one from Professor Williams, another from Dr. Martinez. I scrolled past them all until I found what I was looking for. A simple message from Uncle Robert. However you did, I'm proud of you for making it this far. But the text that surprised me most came from an unknown number. This is Sarah. I know you hate me. I hate me too right now. But I wanted to say the charges are being dropped to misdemeanors. I'm getting help, real help, and I'm sorry for everything. You deserved a better sister. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. Maybe someday I'd have room for forgiveness, but today wasn't that day. Today was for celebrating with my chosen family, the ones who'd never questioned my worth or tried to dim my light. As we drove toward pancakes and processed the adrenaline crash of post-MCAT exhaustion, Maria started our traditional pre-test song. Eye of the Tiger at full volume. Soon we were all singing terribly, 5 future doctors who'd just conquered one of medicine's greatest gatekeepers with nothing but determination, shared resources, and the unshakable belief that where we came from didn't determine where we could go. The winter sun set over the city as we pulled into the diner parking lot. In 4 weeks, we'd have our scores. In 6 weeks, I'd interview for the early assurance program. But right now, in this moment, I had everything I needed: friends who'd become family mentors who believed in me, and the knowledge that I'd survived every attempt to break me. Sarah had tried to delete my future. Instead, she'd only made me more certain of it. February arrived with a storm that shut down campus for 3 days. I was huddled in my apartment, wrapped in every blanket I owned when the email arrived that would change everything. My hands trembled as I clicked open the medical school portal. We are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted to the early assurance program. I read it 3 times before the word sank in. Accepted. To medical school, with a guaranteed spot awaiting after graduation and a financial aid package that would cover most of my tuition. The MCAT scores had come back strong. Not perfect, but well above their threshold. Combined with my research and the interview that had gone better than I dared hope it was enough. I called Mrs. Peterson first, barely able to speak through the tears. "Oh, honey," she said, her own voice thick with emotion. "I knew you could do it. I'm so proud of you." Next came my study group, who responded with a chaos of celebration emojis and voice messages. Professor Williams sent a congratulatory email within minutes of the acceptance posting. She'd been refreshing the portal all day, she admitted. Dr. Martinez called personally to welcome me to the next phase of my journey. But the joy was tempered by what came next. Within hours of my acceptance, the family group chat exploded. I hadn't participated in months, but I still received the notifications. "Mom, just saw Christa's Facebook post about medical school. Would have been nice to hear from family first." "Dad, congratulations are in order, I suppose, though the timing is suspicious given Sarah's situation." "Aunt Linda, wonderful news. So proud of you, Christa." "Mom, Linda, you don't know the full situation. Christa has made choices that have devastated our family." The messages continued, a toxic mix of backhanded congratulations and accusations. I was about to mute the conversation when Uncle Robert's message stopped me. "Yes, Uncle Robert. For those unclear on the full situation, Christa nearly died 2 years ago while we celebrated Sarah's graduation. She's built her success while working multiple jobs and receiving 0 family support. Sarah criminally harassed her and tried to sabotage her medical school applications. Let's be very clear about who devastated whom." The chat went silent after that. An hour later, my phone rang. "Mom, how dare you turn family members against us?" Her voice was shrill, acidic. "Robert has no right to air private matters." "Criminal charges are public record, Mom, and nothing he said was untrue." "Sarah made a mistake. She's in therapy now. The least you could do is consider her feelings before broadcasting your success." I laughed, actually laughed. Consider her feelings? Did she consider mine when she tried to destroy my career? Did you consider mine when you left me dying alone? You're being dramatic as always. We've tried to move past your attention-seeking behavior, but you insist on holding grudges. "No, Mom, I insist on holding boundaries. There's a difference. If you had any family loyalty..." I hung up. Just press the red button and set the phone aside. There was something liberating about not needing the last word, not fighting for acknowledgement that would never come. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Dad stood at my apartment door looking older than I remembered. His hair had gone gray at the temples and there were deep lines around his eyes. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I hesitated, then stepped aside. He entered my small space, taking in the medical textbooks stacked everywhere, the MCAT prep materials still scattered on my desk, the acceptance letter I'd printed and pinned to my bulletin board. "This is how you live." He seemed genuinely surprised by the modest surroundings. This is how I live without family money or support, yes. He sat heavily on my second-hand couch. Your mother doesn't know I'm here. I told her I was meeting a client. I waited, not making this easier for him. I remember when you were little, he said finally. You used to follow me around with this toy stethoscope declaring everyone needed checkups. You'd bandage your stuffed animals and create elaborate medical charts for their conditions. I remember. When did we lose you, Christa? When did you become a stranger? The question hung between us. I could have softened, could have taken responsibility for the distance to preserve his feelings. Old Christa would have. You lost me the night you chose a graduation party over my life. You lost me every time you believed Sarah's lies over my truth. You lost me when you tried to give her my inheritance. You didn't lose me, Dad. You threw me away. His shoulders sagged. Your mother, she always said Sarah needed more support, that you were strong enough to handle yourself. I was 18. I almost died. I needed parents, not performance reviews. I know. The words were barely a whisper. I've known for a while now, but Patricia is... She can't admit when she's wrong, and Sarah learned from her. They feed off each other's version of events until it becomes truth to them. And you, what's your excuse? He met my eyes then. Cowardice. It was easier to go along than fight for you. I'm not proud of it. We sat in silence for a moment. Part of me wanted to rage at him, to list every moment he'd failed me, but I was tired of anger. It took so much energy to maintain. What do you want, Dad? Why are you really here? To tell you I'm proud of you, without qualifications or comparisons to Sarah. Just proud. The words I'd waited 20 years to hear landed hollow. Thank you, I said, because it seemed appropriate, but I don't need your pride anymore. I have my own. He nodded slowly. I suppose you do. Would you tell me about medical school? Your plans? So I did. I talked about my research on antibiotic resistance, the early assurance program I hope to specialize in emergency medicine like Dr. Martinez. His eyes lit up with genuine interest, asking informed questions, reminding me that before he'd become the man who enabled my erasure, he'd been the dad who bought me that toy stethoscope. I should go, he said eventually. Your mother will wonder. At the door he paused. I know it's too late to be the father you deserved, but maybe I could occasionally be the father you'll allow. I'll think about it, I said honestly. But Dad, this doesn't fix anything, and I won't pretend it does for Mom's comfort. I understand. After he left, I sat with the complexity of it all. One parent attempting accountability while the other doubled down on denial. A sister in therapy for crimes committed in pursuit of superiority. A family shattered by its own dysfunction. My phone buzzed. The Broke Pre-Med Brigade group chat was planning a celebration dinner. Jennifer had gotten into her top choice, David was waitlisted at 3 schools with good chances, Amit had multiple acceptances, and Maria was weighing options with full rides. We did it, Jennifer's message read. All of us, despite everything. That evening, we met at our terrible diner, the same one where we'd celebrated post-MCAT. The waitress recognized us now, automatically bringing coffee and whatever pie was freshest. We'd spent so many early mornings here, quizzing each other between bites of questionable eggs. To the Broke Pre-Med Brigade, Amit raised his coffee mug. May we never forget where we came from. And may we make it easier for those who come after, Maria added. As we toasted with ceramic mugs and shared stories of acceptance letters and family reactions, I felt the truth of found family settle into my bones. These people had seen me at my worst, exhausted, terrified, dealing with criminal harassment from my own sister, and chosen to stand beside me anyway. Hey, David said suddenly, whatever happened with Sarah's charges? Pled down to misdemeanors, probation, community service, mandatory therapy. Her college let her stay, but she's on academic warning. That's generous, Jennifer observed. Money and good lawyers usually are, I shrugged. But honestly, I hope the therapy helps. Living in someone else's shadow made me invisible. Living in mine seems to have driven her to crime. Neither of us deserved the roles our parents assigned. That's surprisingly philosophical for someone she tried to destroy, Amit said. I've had time to think. And distance helps. I don't forgive her, may never forgive her, but I can understand how we both became victims of our parents' dysfunction in different ways. She got the pressure of perfection. I got the pain of neglect. Both left scars. Speaking of parents, Maria said carefully, what are you doing about yours? I told them about Dad's visit, Mom's continued hostility, the family divide Uncle Robert had exposed. They listened with the patience of people who'd heard every update of the saga over months of study sessions. You know what I think, David said finally. I think the best revenge is the life you're already living. Success on your own terms. Happiness they can't touch. Family you choose who actually show up. Here's to showing up, Jennifer agreed, and we toasted again. The conversation shifted to lighter things. Residency dreams, specialty interests, the absurdity of medical school costing more than most people's houses. But underneath it all was the recognition that we'd done something extraordinary. We'd beaten odds designed to exclude us, supported each other when biological families failed, and earned our places in medicine through sheer determination. My phone lit up with another family group chat notification. Without looking, I turned it face down. Those people had their own narrative to maintain one where I was forever the difficult daughter who chose strangers over blood. But these weren't strangers around me. This was my family. The mentors who saw my potential, the friends who shared my struggle, the elderly neighbor who'd saved my life and continued to choose me every day since. Later that night, I wrote in the journal Dr. Martinez had suggested I keep. Today, I got everything I thought I wanted. Medical school acceptance and something like acknowledgement from Dad. But it feels different than I imagined. Less like victory, more like validation of a choice I made years ago to stop waiting for love that came with conditions and build a life surrounded by love that simply exists. The acceptance letter isn't the prize. The journey to it, and the people who walked it with me, that's the real gift. I closed the journal and looked at my bulletin board. The acceptance letter hung there, but it was surrounded by other treasures. A photo of the broke pre-med brigade at 5 a.m. in the library. Mrs. Peterson's handwritten recipe for future Dr. Fuel soup. A note from Dr. Martinez saying she was proud of me, Uncle Robert's business card with "call anytime" written on the back. This was my life now. Built on abandonment, but not defined by it. Shaped by rejection, but not limited by it. A life where love wasn't rationed based on achievement or comparison, but given freely by people who saw worth in the working, striving, scarred but still standing version of me. Medical school would begin in 6 months. Between now and then, I had finals to ace research to complete and a graduation to attend. My own where my chosen family would cheer from the audience while my biological one decided whether my success was worth witnessing. Their choice didn't matter anymore. I'd learned to cheer for myself. Medical school was everything I dreamed and nothing like I'd imagined. The workload made pre-med look like a gentle warm-up. Anatomy lab, biochemistry, pathology. The information came in torrents demanding not just memorization, but true understanding. But I was built for this. Years of 5 a.m. study sessions and working multiple jobs had prepared me for the marathon. What I wasn't prepared for was how naturally leadership came to me. By second year, I'd been elected class representative, organized study groups that became legendary for their effectiveness and started a support network for first-generation medical students. My research on antibiotic-resistant bacteria continued from undergrad, caught the attention of the infectious disease department. You have a gift, Dr. Patel, my research advisor, told me one afternoon as we reviewed my latest data, not just for the science, but for seeing connections others miss. The third year brought clinical rotations and the discovery that my hands were steady, my decision-making clear, even under pressure. Surgery rotation was a revelation. While other students struggled with the long hours and intense focus required, I found peace in the operating room, the methodical precision, the life or death stakes, the need for absolute presence. It all clicked. "Have you considered surgery?" Dr. Chen asked after I'd assisted on a particularly complex appendectomy. The irony wasn't lost on me. "I'm thinking emergency surgery," I admitted, like my mentor from undergrad. "Good choice. You have the temperament for it. Cool under pressure, excellent spatial reasoning, and you don't panic when things go sideways." But the rotation that solidified my path came during a night shift in the emergency department. A teenager came in with severe abdominal pain, her parents dismissive, convinced she was being dramatic about her period cramps. Something in her eyes, the fear mixed with resignation, was devastatingly familiar. I convinced the attending to order a CT scan, despite the parents' protests about unnecessary expenses. Acute appendicitis on the verge of rupture. As we wheeled her into surgery, I held her hand. "You're not being dramatic," I told her quietly. "You're sick, and we're going to fix it. You did the right thing by speaking up." She squeezed my hand, tears rolling down her cheeks. "My mom said I always exaggerate." Moms can be wrong. Pain is your body's way of asking for help. Always listen to it. The surgery went perfectly. Her recovery was uncomplicated, but the case haunted me in the best way. How many teenagers were dismissed, their pain minimized, their instincts about their own bodies questioned, how many barely survived because someone finally listened. I threw myself into emergency medicine with renewed purpose. My evaluations were stellar. "Natural surgical hands," one attending wrote. "Exceptional clinical judgment," wrote another. But the comment that meant the most came from the chief of emergency surgery, "shows unusual empathy for patients whose families minimize their conditions." Advocates fiercely but professionally. The irony of my growing reputation didn't escape me. The girl whose family couldn't be bothered to attend her near death was becoming known for never leaving a patient alone. The daughter, called dramatic and attention-seeking, was praised for taking every complaint seriously. Sometimes trauma shapes us into exactly who others need us to be. Fourth year arrived with the pressure of residency applications. The competition was fierce, especially for surgical specialties. I needed research publications, stellar recommendations, and something to set me apart from hundreds of other qualified candidates. That something came from an unexpected source. Dr. Martinez, my old mentor, called with an opportunity. "I'm heading a multi-site study on emergency surgery protocols for marginalized populations. Patients whose symptoms get dismissed, who delay seeking care due to past medical trauma. I need a medical student research coordinator. Interested? Beyond interested. This is exactly what I want to focus on." I thought it might be. Fair warning, it's a massive undertaking. You'll be managing data from 12 hospitals, coordinating with dozens of physicians, and the publication timeline is aggressive. But if we pull this off, it'll be groundbreaking. I accepted immediately. The next months blurred together. Classes during the day, research coordination, in the evenings, residency applications, squeezed into whatever time remained. My apartment became command central with spreadsheets covering every surface and conference calls at all hours. The broke pre-med brigade, now scattered across different medical schools, maintained our group chat. Everyone was struggling with the residency application process, but we shared resources like always. Jennifer was gunning for pediatrics, David for psychiatry, Amit for internal medicine, and Maria for family practice. We edited each other's personal statements, practiced interview questions over video calls, and reminded each other that we'd beaten the odds before. October brought an email that made me sit down hard on my kitchen floor. The National Medical Student Research Competition, one of the most prestigious in the country, wanted me to present our preliminary findings. The same competition Sarah had entered and failed to even qualify for during her brief pre-med attempt. You have to do it, Mrs. Peterson insisted when I told her. She'd moved to a senior living community but still demanded weekly dinners. This is your moment. What if they find out about everything? The family situation, Sarah's criminal charges, all of it. Then they'll know you succeeded despite obstacles that would break most people. That's not shameful, dear. That's remarkable. The presentation was in Boston. I'd scraped together funding from various grants, staying in the cheapest hotel I could find, and living on conference coffee and granola bars. But when I stood at that podium, looking out at hundreds of the country's best medical minds, I felt like I belonged. My presentation focused on the correlation between delayed emergency surgery and mortality rates in patients with histories of medical dismissal. The data was compelling, the implications significant, and my delivery polished from months of practice. When I finished, the applause was genuine and sustained. During the networking reception, physicians approached with business cards and collaboration offers. The judges pulled me aside to say my work was exactly what medicine needed. Research with heart backed by impeccable methodology. Then I saw her. Sarah stood by the registration table wearing a visitor's badge and an expression I'd never seen before. She looked diminished. The golden confidence had tarnished into something brittle and uncertain. My first instinct was to leave to protect the peace I'd fought so hard to build. But something made me walk over. Hi, Sarah. Christa. She clutched her purse like armor. I saw the program listing, your presentation. I had to come. Oh, why? Because I needed to see who you became without us holding you back. Her voice was different, therapy softened, maybe. You were incredible up there, like you were born for this. I was born for this. It just took almost dying for me to find it. She flinched. I know that now. Therapy has been illuminating about a lot of things, about how Mom and Dad pit us against each other, about how I defined myself entirely by being better than you. When you started succeeding without me as competition, I didn't know who I was anymore. So you tried to destroy me. Yes, no excuses, no justifications, just acknowledgement. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted to say that I see it now. All of it. The surgery they ignored, the pain they dismissed, the success you built alone. And I'm sorry. Genuinely, deeply sorry. I studied her, this sister who'd been my shadow and my spotlight, my competition and my catalyst. What are you doing now? Pharmacy school. Turns out I'm good at chemistry when I'm not trying to be you. A rueful smile. And therapy. Lots of therapy. I'm learning to be Sarah without the better than Christa part. Good. That's good. An awkward pause stretched between us. 24 years of dysfunction couldn't be bridged in a conference center lobby, but maybe it didn't need to be. I should go, Sarah said. Your colleagues are waiting to congratulate you. But Christa, I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry it took me so long to say it without conditions attached. She left before I could respond. I stood there processing until Dr. Chen appeared at my elbow. Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that. Just family stuff. Ah, she didn't press. In medicine, everyone had family stuff. Well, when you're ready, there are several program directors who want to meet you. Your presentation has people talking. That evening, I called Uncle Robert from my hotel room. He listened to my account of Sarah's appearance without interrupting. She's been working on accountability in therapy, he confirmed. Your parents are furious about it. She started setting boundaries with them, refusing to participate in their version of family history. Patricia calls me weekly to complain about both her daughters abandoning her. Both of us. Oh, yes. In her mind, Sarah's therapy is your fault, too. You corrupted her by example, apparently. Taught her she didn't need parental approval. I laughed, really laughed. So I'm the villain in every version of the story. To them, yes. To the rest of us, you're the hero who broke the cycle. Sarah's following your path in her own way, and maybe that's the best revenge. Not just your success, but showing her she could succeed without their toxic framework too. I won second place in the competition. First went to someone with 10 publications and an Ivy League pedigree, but second place at a national competition was still extraordinary. The prize money would help with interview travel, and the recognition opened doors I hadn't dared approach. The flight home was surreal. I had 17 emails from residency programs expressing interest, 3 collaboration offers for the research project, and a text from Dr. Martinez saying simply, "Knew you'd shine." Mrs. Peterson picked me up from the airport, illegally parking in the loading zone with the confidence of someone who'd lived through too much to fear parking tickets. "Tell me everything," she demanded as we navigated traffic. "Every detail, every triumph, every moment they realized you were special." So I did. I told her about the presentation, the networking, the program directors who'd sought me out. But I also told her about Sarah, about the apology without excuses, about the strange grief of getting words I'd needed from someone I'd written off. She said thoughtfully. "People can change, but trust takes time. Be proud she's growing, but protect yourself too. You don't owe her healing at the cost of your own." I know, but it felt significant, like a chapter closing maybe, or a new one beginning. The one where you stop defining yourself in opposition to her and just exist as yourself. Back in my apartment, I found a package waiting. No return address, but I recognized Mom's handwriting. Inside was my old toy stethoscope, the one Dad had mentioned. A sticky note attached read, "Found this cleaning out the attic. Thought you might want it. Mom." No congratulations on the conference. No acknowledgement of my presentation or placing in a national competition. Just an artifact from when they'd still seen potential in me before Sarah eclipsed everything else. I set the toy stethoscope on my bookshelf between my real one and my growing collection of medical texts. It belonged there. A reminder of the dreams that survived neglect, dismissal, and attempted sabotage. Little Christa, with her bandaged teddy bears, would be amazed at what we'd become. The residency interview season loomed ahead, but for tonight I allowed myself to rest in the accomplishment. 4th-year medical student, published researcher, national presenter, rising star in emergency surgery. Not bad for the girl who'd been left to die alone while her family celebrated someone else's achievements. Not bad at all. Match day approached like a storm system on radar, inevitable, powerful, and life-altering. The entire 4th-year class vibrated with nervous energy as March 15th drew near. We'd all submitted our rank lists, ordering our preferred residency programs from Dream to Safety Net. Now we waited for the algorithm to decide our futures. I'd interviewed at 12 programs flying around the country on a shoestring budget, sometimes sleeping in airports to save hotel costs. Each interview was a marathon. Hospital tours, meetings with faculty, dinners with residents who evaluated your fit with their program. I'd worn the same suit to everyone, grateful it was black, and hid the coffee stains from rushed airport breakfasts. My top choice was clear, the same hospital where Dr. Martinez had saved my life 6 years ago. Their emergency surgery program was legendary, and during my interview, I'd felt an instant connection with the faculty. Dr. Martinez herself was now department vice chair, and though she'd recused herself from my interview process to avoid bias, I'd seen her smile from across the hospital lobby. "You're going to match there," Jennifer insisted during one of our video calls. "It's poetic justice, full circle. The universe isn't that cruel." "The universe gave me Sarah as a sister," I reminded her. "Its cruelty is well established." But deeper than pessimism was hope. I'd also applied to several other excellent programs casting a wide net. The broke pre-med brigade had a group spreadsheet tracking everyone's interview invites and impressions. We'd evolved from sharing MCAT prep materials to sharing residency interview questions, still lifting each other up. 2 weeks before match day, chaos erupted. I was in the library when my phone exploded with messages. Someone had tagged me in a Facebook post that was going viral in our medical school community. Sarah had written a long public post about her journey through therapy and accountability. In it, she detailed our family dynamics, her criminal harassment of me, and my success despite it all. She named names, included dates, and took full responsibility without excuses. My sister Christa is graduating medical school this year, one section read. She'll be an emergency surgeon saving lives of people whose families dismiss their pain. She knows what that dismissal feels like because our family did it to her. I did it to her. While she fought for her life, we celebrated my achievements. When she succeeded anyway, I tried to destroy her. I committed crimes to protect my ego. She's matching into residency after building her career on the ruins of our neglect. I'm sharing this because she deserves to have her truth told by someone other than herself for once. The comments ranged from shock to support to criticism of her timing. Why now? Why publicly? What did she hope to gain? I called her, my hands shaking. "What are you doing?" I demanded when she answered. "Something I should have done years ago," she said calmly, telling the truth without filtering it through mom and dad's lens. "But why now? Why like this?" "Because match day matters to you, and for once, I wanted our family drama to help instead of hurt. Every residency program Googles applicants. Now when they search your name, they'll find this. Proof that you're not the problem. You're the survivor." Sarah, this could backfire spectacularly. Only with programs that wouldn't deserve you anyway. Any hospital that holds family dysfunction against you isn't where you belong. I didn't know what to say. This was sacrifice from someone who'd never sacrificed for me before. Her reputation, her relationship with our parents, her carefully curated image. "They're going to destroy you for this," I said quietly. "They already are. Mom's called 17 times. Dad texted that I'm dead to him. But you know what? I'd rather be dead to them and alive to myself. Therapy's expensive, but it works." After we hung up, I sat with the complexity of it all. Sarah's post had indeed gone viral beyond our school, shared in medical forums and residency groups. The responses were overwhelmingly supportive, with countless medical students sharing their own stories of family trauma and professional success. Dr. Chen found me in the library that evening. I saw the post. "How are you holding up?" "I honestly don't know. It's like she gave me a gift I didn't ask for and don't know how to process." Family's complicated," she said simply. "But that post, it shows character growth, and it confirms what we all knew. Your success is even more impressive given what you've overcome." Match week arrived with its traditional torture of waiting. Monday brought the email everyone dreaded. "Did you match? Just a yes or no, not where." I clicked with trembling fingers. "Congratulations, you have matched." I screenshot it immediately and sent it to my support group. Similar celebrations flooded our chat. Jennifer, David, Amit, Maria. We'd all matched somewhere. The broke pre-med brigade had a perfect success rate. But where that answer wouldn't come until Friday. Mrs. Peterson insisted on hosting a match day party. "I don't care if it's just us," she declared. "You're getting a proper celebration." The night before match day, I couldn't sleep. I'd ranked my home hospital first, but what if they hadn't ranked me as highly? What if I ended up across the country? What if? My phone rang at 2 a.m. "Mom." "I know it's late," she began without preamble, "but I couldn't sleep." Sarah showed me her post. And I'm calling to say she's not wrong. We failed you, Christa. I failed you." Her voice was strange, like she was reading from a script. "Your father and I are in counseling now." Sarah insisted. I'm learning things about myself I don't like." I sat up in bed, fully awake. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because tomorrow you find out where you'll spend the next 5 years, and I wanted you to know that wherever you match, it's because of your own strength. Not because of us, but in spite of us." Sarah says that's important to acknowledge. Sarah says, "She's here, coaching me. I'm not good at this, Christa, at admitting fault, but I'm trying to learn. The call ended awkwardly with Mom attempting some kind of blessing for match day that came out stilted and formal, but she'd tried. After 6 years of nothing, she'd tried. I didn't sleep after that. Match day dawned bright and clear. Medical students across the country would open their envelopes at the same time, noon Eastern. Our school held a ceremony where we'd open them together, surrounded by classmates who'd become family through shared struggle. I wore my interview suit one last time, pinning a small toy stethoscope to my lapel, the one Mom had sent. Mrs. Peterson sat in the audience with Uncle Robert, who'd driven down for the occasion. They were my only family present, but they were enough. As noon approached, my hands shook so badly I could barely hold the envelope. 4 years of medical school, 6 years since that night. I almost died a lifetime of fighting for this moment. "Everyone ready," the dean called out. 3, 2, 1, open. The sound of tearing paper filled the auditorium. I pulled out the single sheet, my vision blurring as I read. "Congratulations, you have matched in emergency medicine at University Hospital." Home. I was going home. To the hospital where I'd almost died, where Dr. Martinez had saved me, where I'd volunteered to pay off medical bills and discovered my calling. The circle wasn't just complete. It was perfect. Around me, classmates screamed and cried and hugged. I stood frozen until someone crashed into me, Jennifer, tears streaming down her face. "Boston Children's," she shrieked. "Pediatrics at Boston Children's, where did you match?" "The home base I managed, University Hospital, emergency surgery track." "Oh my God, Christa, that's perfect. That's so perfect." The celebration blurred together. Photos, congratulations, faculty stopping to say they'd known I belonged there. Uncle Robert pulled me into a bear hug, whispering that Grandma would be so proud. Mrs. Peterson cried openly, telling everyone in earshot about her girl who'd made it. That evening, the Broke Pre-Med Brigade had a video celebration. David had matched at his top psychiatry program, Amit, in internal medicine at Johns Hopkins Maria, in family medicine in Texas near her family. We'd all gotten our first choices, defying every statistic about students from our backgrounds. "We need to make this a tradition," Maria declared. "Every year on match day, wherever we are, we celebrate together. And when we're attendings, we sponsor students like us." "The Broke Pre-Med Brigade Scholarship Fund," Amit suggested, "for students working multiple jobs to afford their dreams." "Yes," I agreed immediately. "Full circle, pay it forward." Late that night, after the celebrations died down and reality started settling in, I found myself back in the hospital where everything began. Not as a patient or volunteer this time, but as an incoming resident. I stood outside the emergency department, watching the controlled chaos through the glass doors. "Thought I might find you here," Dr. Martinez said, appearing beside me. "Couldn't stay away." I wanted to see it, really see it, my future. 5 years of overnight shifts impossible saves heartbreaking losses and the highest highs when you pull off miracles. Sure, you're ready. I was born ready. Just took a while to find my way here. She smiled. "That's why you'll be exceptional. You know what it's like on the other side of that surgical drape. You'll never forget the humanity of it." Dr. Martinez, thank you for everything. For saving my life, believing in me, opening doors. I wouldn't be here without you. "You would have found a way," she said firmly. "People like you always do. But I'm honored I got to be part of your journey, and selfishly thrilled you'll be joining our team." As we stood there, an ambulance pulled up, lights flashing. The back doors burst open, paramedics rushing a patient inside. Another life hanging in the balance, another chance for medicine to work its imperfect miracles. In 3 months, I'd be part of that dance. Dr. Christa Mitchell, emergency surgery resident. The girl who'd almost died alone would spend her career ensuring others didn't. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Saw the announcement on your school's page. University Hospital is lucky to have you. I'm proud of you. Really, truly proud. No conditions attached. I screenshot it, adding it to my collection of impossible moments made real. Then I drove home to my apartment, where acceptance letters and match notifications covered my bulletin board like wallpaper of dreams achieved. Tomorrow, I'd start preparing for residency, studying surgical techniques and emergency protocols. But tonight was for gratitude, for Mrs. Peterson's unfailing support, for Uncle Robert's intervention, for the broke pre-med brigade's solidarity, for Dr. Martinez's mentorship, even for Sarah's eventual accountability and Mom's awkward attempt at acknowledgement. Most of all, for the 18-year-old girl who'd survived against all odds, who'd taken abandonment and transformed it into purpose, who'd refused to let others' indifference define her worth. She'd be a pretty great doctor, I thought. And in 3 months, she'd finally get to prove it. Residency was baptism by fire. The first 24-hour shift left me questioning every life choice I'd ever made. But when I successfully completed my first solo emergency appendectomy at 3 a.m., the attending watching but not intervening, something clicked into place. This was where I belonged. By second year, my reputation was solidifying. Mitchell's got the best hands in her class, attendings would say. Cool under pressure, never rattles. What they didn't know was that after surviving my family's abandonment, a packed trauma bay felt manageable. The research project with Dr. Martinez had evolved into something groundbreaking. Our paper on emergency surgery delays in dismissed populations won national recognition. Medical journals wanted follow-up studies. Speaking invitations poured in. At 28, I was becoming a voice in emergency medicine advocating for patients whose pain others minimized. "You're moving too fast," Dr. Harrison, the residency director, warned during my third-year evaluation. "Most residents focus on surviving. You're building a national platform." "I've lost too much time already," I replied. 6 years ago, I almost died because people dismissed my symptoms. How many patients are we losing right now for the same reason? He studied me over his glasses. "Fair point. Just remember to take care of yourself too. Burnout is real even for crusaders." But slowing down felt impossible when the work mattered so much. I developed protocols for emergency departments to better identify patients with histories of medical dismissal, created training modules for residents on taking dramatic patients seriously. The hospital implemented my screening system, and within 6 months, our misdiagnosis rates dropped by 30%. The broke pre-med brigade, now scattered across the country in their own residencies, remained my anchor. Our monthly video calls were sacred, carved out despite impossible schedules. Jennifer was revolutionizing pediatric emergency care in Boston. David pioneered trauma-informed psychiatry in Seattle. Amit researched disparities in cardiac care at Johns Hopkins. Maria opened clinics in underserved Texas communities. We were all racing toward the same goal, changing medicine from the inside. Year 4 brought unexpected complexity. I was scrubbing in for a routine gallbladder removal when I recognized the patient's emergency contact name, Patricia Mitchell, my mother. The patient was her best friend, Linda Harrison, the same woman who'd hosted Sarah's graduation dinner while I lay dying. The universe, it seemed, had a twisted sense of humor. "I found the attending. I need to recuse myself from this case. The patient is connected to my family." Dr. Kim nodded. "Family drama." Something like that. But Linda had seen me in pre-op. Word spread. Within hours, my phone exploded with family messages I'd ignored for years. Mom demanding I put aside petty grudges to help her friend. Dad suggesting this was an opportunity for reconciliation. Various aunts and uncles suddenly remembering I existed now that I might be useful. I held firm. Professional boundaries existed for a reason. Another resident handled the surgery perfectly. Linda recovered without complications, but the family narrative shifted again. Now I was the heartless doctor who'd refused to help in a crisis. Sarah called that evening. "They're being ridiculous," she said without preamble. "You did the right thing, ethical thing. Mom's just mad she can't control you anymore. How are you handling the fallout?" "Oh, I'm getting my share. Apparently, my therapy has made me difficult. I've started setting boundaries, and they hate it. Did you know saying no to unreasonable requests makes you a bad daughter?" "Shocking revelation," I said dryly. "Listen, I know we're not close, may never be, but I want you to know I see it. All of it. The way they're trying to use your success after dismissing your struggle. It's gross." "Thanks. That means something." Our conversation has remained sporadic and careful, but Sarah's continued growth gave me unexpected hope. Not for reconciliation, some wounds cut too deep, but for the possibility that cycles could break even late. The 5th year of residency arrived with a surprise. Dr. Martinez announced her retirement as department chair. The hospital would conduct a national search for her replacement, but she pulled me aside privately. "You should apply," she said simply. "Elena, I'm a 5th-year resident. That's insane." "Is it? You've published 12 papers, developed 3 nationally recognized protocols, and every metric in our department has improved since you started implementing changes. You think like a leader because you are one." "No one's going to hire a 30-year-old department chair." "They might, if she's the right 30-year-old. The board wants innovation. You breathe innovation. At least consider it." I did consider it. Late nights in the call room, I drafted vision statements for what emergency surgery could become. Protocols that prioritized patient advocacy, training programs that addressed bias, research initiatives that could save lives currently lost to dismissal. The application deadline loomed. I had 2 options: play it safe, finish residency, follow the traditional path, or shoot for something extraordinary, risking spectacular failure for the chance at transformative impact. Mrs. Peterson, now 87 and sharp as ever, made the decision simple. "Honey, when have you ever taken the safe path? You survived what would have killed most people, built a career from nothing, and changed how hospitals treat dismissed patients. Apply for the damn job." So I did. The application process was intense: presentations to the board, interviews with department heads, meetings with hospital administration. I was decades younger than other candidates, but my vision was clear and my track record undeniable. "You're an unconventional choice," the board president admitted during my final interview, "but medicine needs unconventional. Your protocols have saved lives. Your research has changed practice nationally. The question is, are you ready for this level of responsibility?" "I've been ready since I was 18 and almost died in this hospital," I replied. "Every day since has been preparation for the chance to ensure no one else experiences that abandonment." 2 weeks before residency graduation, the announcement came. In a decision that made medical news, Nationwide University Hospital named their youngest ever chief of surgery, Dr. Christa Mitchell, age 31. The reactions varied wildly. Colleagues who'd watched my journey celebrated. Traditionalists grumbled about experience and proper timelines. My family, well, their responses were predictably complex. Mom sent a congratulations card, store-bought generic signed without love. Dad called to say he was proud, though he stumbled over the words like a foreign language. Extended family suddenly remembered every birthday they'd missed, reaching out with transparent networking requests. But Sarah's response surprised me most. She sent a photo of a newspaper clipping about my appointment with a handwritten note: "Framed this for my office. When pharmacy colleagues ask, I tell them about my sister, who refused to be invisible. Proud doesn't cover it. You didn't just succeed, you soared." The broke pre-med brigade threw a virtual party that devolved into happy tears and ambitious toasts. "To the girl who studied in hospital waiting rooms and now runs the department," Jennifer cheered. "May we all achieve impossible things." My last shift as a resident felt ceremonial. I saved it for overnight emergency surgery, coming full circle to where it all began. Between cases, I walked the halls where I'd almost died, volunteered to pay debts, and discovered my calling. At dawn, I found myself in the same family waiting room where Mrs. Peterson had held vigil 13 years ago. Now it bore a plaque I'd commissioned in honor of those who stand beside us when family fails. Love is action, not obligation. Dr. Martinez found me there, ready for Monday. Ready to revolutionize emergency surgery, implement protocols that save dismissed patients, build programs that support residents from unconventional backgrounds, absolutely. Good, because that 18-year-old girl who almost died, she's about to save thousands of lives, not despite her trauma, but because of how she transformed it. Monday would bring the chief's office department meetings and strategic planning, but standing in that waiting room, I felt the weight of every patient who'd been dismissed, every resident who'd been told they didn't belong, every family who'd failed to show up when it mattered. They were my responsibility now, my chance to ensure that pain had purpose, that suffering led to systemic change, that no one else would lie dying while their family chose a party instead. The youngest chief of surgery in hospital history, the invisible daughter made unmistakably visible, the abandoned patient who'd become the ultimate advocate. Not bad for someone who wasn't supposed to survive the night. Not bad at all. The transition from resident to chief of surgery should have been overwhelming, but I'd been preparing for it without realizing. Every protocol I'd developed, every research project I'd led, every dismissed patient I'd advocated for, it all prepared me for this moment. My first day in the chief's office, I found a gift on the desk, a new stethoscope with an engraved nameplate. For the doctor who listens, Dr. Martinez. Beside it lay a photo from my residency graduation, the entire Broke Pre-Med Brigade beaming at the camera arms linked in triumph. The challenges came immediately. Older attendings who'd trained me now reported to me. Budget constraints threatened our innovative programs. The board watched my every move, waiting to see if their gamble on youth would pay off. But I had advantages they hadn't counted on. Years of working multiple jobs taught me efficiency. Surviving without family support built unshakable independence. Transforming trauma into purpose gave me vision they couldn't teach in leadership seminars. Within 3 months, our emergency surgery department metrics improved across every category. Wait times decreased. Patient satisfaction soared. Our new protocols for identifying dismissed patients caught 7 cases of serious conditions other hospitals had missed. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it, the CEO said during our quarterly review. Applications for our residency program have tripled. Everyone wants to train under the Mitchell method. The Mitchell method, I nearly laughed. It was simply treating every patient like they mattered, listening to their pain, believing their symptoms. Revolutionary? Only because medicine had forgotten basics in its rush to efficiency. But success brought scrutiny. A journalist investigating my meteoric rise uncovered the family drama Sarah's criminal charges my near-death experience. The story went viral, from abandoned patient to hospital chief, the Christa Mitchell story. I braced for impact, but the response overwhelmed me. Emails poured in from patients whose pain had been dismissed, medical students from dysfunctional families, residents struggling without support. My story had become theirs, proof that survival could transform into power to change systems. The hospital board, initially nervous about publicity, realized they'd struck gold. A chief who'd lived the patient experience, who understood dismissal from inside and out, who could speak to failures while implementing solutions. They approved every program I proposed. By December, we'd established the Critical Care Advocacy Initiative, a program ensuring no patient spent emergency surgery alone. Volunteers, social workers, and staff rotated through, providing the presence I'd lacked. Mrs. Peterson cut the ribbon at the launch, telling reporters how she'd held vigil for a dying girl whose family couldn't be bothered. The resident support network followed. Financial assistance, counseling services, and mentorship for trainees from challenging backgrounds. The first scholarship went to a pre-med student working 3 jobs while caring for younger siblings. Her tears at the awards ceremony reminded me why this mattered. But the universe wasn't done with its ironic twists. One Thursday afternoon, my assistant knocked urgently. "Dr. Mitchell, there's a situation. A residency applicant is insisting she knows you personally. Security has concerns about her behavior." My stomach dropped before she even said the name. Sarah Mitchell. Yes, she's agitated, making scene in the lobby. Should we call the police? No, send her up, but have security stand by. 10 minutes later, Sarah entered my office. She looked terrible. Thin, exhausted, professionally dressed, but somehow disheveled. The golden girl was thoroughly tarnished. "Nice office," she said, trying for casual and missing by miles. "Very chiefly." "Sarah, what are you doing here?" "I applied for your residency program. Pharmacy didn't work out. Turns out memorizing drug interactions doesn't fix deep-seated identity issues." She laughed bitterly. "So I went back to medical school. Older student pathway. Just graduated. And now I'm here begging my estranged sister for a chance I don't deserve." I studied her carefully. "You know I'd have to recuse myself from your application." "I know. That's not why I'm here. I mean, not really." She slumped in the chair across from my desk. "I'm here because I've spent 6 years in therapy, learning who I am without being mom's favorite or your competition. And you know what I discovered? I actually want to help people, specifically people whose families fail them during medical crises." "Wait, Sarah." "I know how it sounds. Poor little golden child wants to atone for her sins through medicine. But it's not that. Or not just that. It's..." She struggled for words. "That night you almost died changed everything. Not immediately. I was too wrapped up in myself to see it then. But eventually, the way you survived, built this career, revolutionized emergency medicine. You showed me that trauma can become purpose. That maybe I could transform my shame into something useful. By following my exact path? By learning from your path to find my own. Emergency medicine, yes, but focused on family dynamics during medical crises, helping families show up for each other instead of fracturing under pressure." I leaned back, processing. Sarah in my residency program, Sarah in my hospital, Sarah trying to heal wounds by preventing others. "The other applicants will think you're getting special treatment," I said finally. "Let them. I'll work twice as hard to prove myself. I've got nothing left to lose, Christa. Parents who don't speak to me since I testified about their emotional abuse in therapy. A reputation I destroyed myself. Years of being the villain in your story. But maybe that's exactly what qualifies me to recognize family dysfunction in others. And if I said no, if the program rejects you..." She met my eyes steadily. "Then I'll apply elsewhere. Keep applying until someone gives me a chance. Just like you did, but I wanted you to hear it from me first, to know that I see you now, really see you, not as competition or obstacle, but as the sister who survived our family and somehow made it mean something." After she left, I sat in my office for a long time. The irony was perfect. Too perfect. Sarah applying to learn emergency medicine at the hospital where I'd almost died from our family's neglect. The golden child seeking redemption in the place her shadow had found purpose. I called Dr. Martinez retired, but still my touchstone for impossible decisions. "Life has a sense of humor," she mused after I explained, "but also a sense of balance. You saved yourself. Maybe she's trying to save herself too. The question is, can you handle having her here?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants her to suffer rejection like I did. Part admires her courage in facing this head-on, and part wonders if healing happens not despite proximity, but because of it." Very philosophical, but practically, she'll be judged like any other applicant. I'll recuse myself completely. If she matches here on her own merit, we'll deal with it. If not, at least she tried. March brought match day again, this time from the other side. As chief, I'd host the new residents, welcoming them to our program. The matched names remained confidential until announcement day, but nervous energy filled the hospital. My own match day 5 years ago felt simultaneously recent and ancient. So much had changed. The scared girl clutching an envelope was now the woman running the department. The family who'd ignored her achievements now scrambled for her attention. The sister who'd tried to destroy her future now hoped to build her own in the same halls. The night before the announcement, I couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety, but from anticipation. Tomorrow, we'd welcome 8 new residents, each carrying dreams and ambitions. One might even carry my last name. The hospital auditorium buzzed with excitement. Current residents, faculty, and staff gathered to meet the incoming class. I stood at the podium remembering my own terror and hope 5 years ago. Welcome to the next chapter of your journey, I began. You've matched at a program that values innovation, compassion, and the courage to challenge traditional thinking. We believe the best doctors are those who understand suffering personally and transform it into healing professionally. I introduced our programs, the advocacy initiative, the support network, the research opportunities. Then came time for the names. 7 announced without incident, bright faces I recognized from interviews, each bringing unique perspectives and experiences. And our 8th resident, I said, steadying my voice, matched through our competitive external pathway for non-traditional students. Please welcome Dr. Sarah Mitchell. The room fell silent. Everyone knew our history. The viral article had ensured that. Sarah walked to the front, professional in her white coat but vulnerable in her expression. She shook my hand formally, but I saw the tremor in hers. "Thank you for this opportunity," she said into the microphone. "I know my presence here raises questions. All I can say is that I'm committed to learning from the best emergency medicine program in the country, one that understands how families can fail patients and how medicine can bridge those failures." Polite applause followed, though I caught the whispers. Nepotism, favoritism, drama. Let them wonder. Sarah would sink or swim on her own merit. I'd ensure fair treatment, nothing more or less. After the ceremony, we found ourselves alone in the hallway, where 13 years ago I'd been wheeled into emergency surgery. "This is where it happened," I said quietly, "where they brought me in." Sarah looked at the floor as if seeing blood invisible to others. "I know. I've walked this hallway 100 times since interviewing, trying to understand how we let you almost die here. How I let pride matter more than your life. We were kids shaped by toxic dynamics. You were dying. I was cruel. Those aren't equivalent." She straightened her coat. "I don't expect forgiveness, Christa, or friendship, or anything beyond professional courtesy. I just want to learn, to maybe save some other 18-year-old whose family can't see past their own dysfunction. Then learn. Work hard. Prove yourself to the attendings who will train you. Show the other residents you earned this spot. Most importantly, remember that every patient who comes through those emergency doors is someone's Christa. Dismissed, minimized, fighting to be heard." "Every patient," she repeated, "I promise." Whether she'd keep that promise remained to be seen, but standing in that hallway, 2 sisters shaped by the same trauma, choosing medicine for different reasons, but similar purposes, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness. Too much stood between us for that. Not trust. That would take years to build, if ever. But possibility. The possibility that breaking cycles meant more than individual success. Sometimes it meant creating space for others to break free, too. Tomorrow, Sarah would begin orientation with 7 other residents. I'd maintain professional distance, letting other attendings guide her training, but I'd watch from afar as she discovered what I'd learned through pain, that medicine at its best transforms our deepest wounds into our greatest strengths. The youngest chief in hospital history and the former golden child starting at the bottom. If the universe enjoyed irony, it was getting quite a show. But then again, the best stories usually involved impossible plot twists, and ours was far from over. 2 years passed in a blur of transformation. The emergency surgery department flourished under protocols that prioritized compassion alongside clinical excellence. Our residency program, once respectable but unremarkable, now received applications from top medical students nationwide. Everyone wanted to train where the Mitchell method originated. Sarah, to her credit, proved herself without leveraging our connection. She worked brutal hours without complaint, earned praise from attendings who didn't know our history, and showed particular skill with cases involving family crisis. Her research on emergency communication with dysfunctional families gained national attention. We maintained professional distance, nodding in hallways, briefcase consultations, nothing more. The real shock came on a Tuesday morning in my 3rd year as chief. I was reviewing residency transfer applications when a name stopped me cold: Patricia Mitchell, PhD. My mother, applying for our hospital's new Director of Patient Family Services position. I read her application 3 times, certain I was hallucinating, but there it was. My mother's name, her credentials in family counseling, when had she gotten those, and a cover letter that made my blood run cold and hot simultaneously. Dear Selection Committee, I write to you as someone who has learned the hardest lessons about family failure during medical crises. 8 years ago, I failed my daughter during a life-threatening emergency. That failure catalyzed my journey to understand and address family dysfunction in healthcare settings. My assistant knocked. Dr. Mitchell, the CEO, wants to discuss the family services candidates. I locked my computer and walked to the executive boardroom in a daze. The CEO, Janet Rodriguez, smiled warmly as I entered. Christa, excellent timing. We've narrowed the family services director to 3 candidates. I wanted your input before we proceed with interviews. She slid 3 folders across the table. My mother's was on top. This one's particularly interesting, Janet continued. Patricia Mitchell, same last name as you. Any relation? The moment of truth. I could lie, claim ignorance, let the process proceed without bias, or I could be honest and risk opening wounds I'd spent years healing. She's my mother, I said quietly. Janet's eyebrows shot up. Oh, I see. That's complicated. That's one word for it. Should I remove her from consideration? I thought about it. The ethical thing would be yes. The safe thing would be absolutely. But something else nagged at me. The possibility that pain had transformed her too. That maybe accountability came in different forms. No, I heard myself say. But I need to recuse myself entirely from the selection process. And if she's hired, we'd need strict boundaries. Of course, though I'm curious, she writes extensively about failing a family member during a medical crisis. Was that? Me? Yes, she's writing about the night I almost died while she attended my sister's graduation. Janet set down the folder carefully. I see, and you're comfortable with us considering her despite that history. I'm comfortable with you evaluating her qualifications objectively. Her personal failures might have taught her valuable lessons, or they might have taught her nothing. That's for the committee to determine. I left the meeting feeling unsettled. That evening, I called the one person who'd understand the complexity. She's doing what now? Mrs. Peterson's voice crackled through the phone. Applying to run family services at my hospital. Apparently, she went back to school, got a doctorate in family counseling, and wants to help other families avoid our mistakes. The audacity. Or growth. I can't tell which. Mrs. Peterson was quiet for a moment. What does your gut say? That she's either genuinely transformed by guilt and therapy, or this is an elaborate way to insert herself into my success. Maybe both. Probably both, she agreed. The question is whether you can handle having her there if they hire her. Could I, Sarah, had been one thing? A peer, a fellow resident, someone I could avoid. But my mother as a director, we'd inevitably interact. Hospital leadership met regularly. Our paths would cross. The interview process proceeded without me. I heard whispers. Patricia Mitchell had impressed the committee. Her presentation on family dysfunction in medical settings was powerful. She'd broken down crying when discussing her greatest professional failure. Sarah found me in the cafeteria a week later looking troubled. "Did you know?" she asked without preamble. "About Mom just found out." "She didn't tell me she was applying. I found out from a resident who recognized our last name." Sarah sat down uninvited. "She's been different since therapy. Really different. But this feels intrusive. Or necessary," I offered, surprising myself. Maybe she needs to face what happened here to truly heal from it. "When did you become so zen about family trauma?" "When I realized holding anger took energy I needed for other things." "I'm not zen, Sarah. I'm practical. If she gets the job, we'll deal with it professionally. If not, nothing changes." "Could you work with her?" I considered the question. "I work with you?" "That's different. I'm a resident. She'd be leadership. You'd have to collaborate, plan programs together. Could you sit across a conference table from the woman who left you to die?" "I sat across from her at match day and welcomed you to the program." Sarah flinched. "Point taken." 2 weeks later, Janet called me to her office. My mother had been offered the position. The committee was unanimous. Her insights into family dysfunction combined with her counseling credentials and evident personal growth made her ideal for the role. "But," Janet added, "we won't proceed if you're uncomfortable. Your contributions to this hospital far outweigh any single hire." What does she know about my role here? Everything. We were transparent about hospital leadership, including your position as chief of surgery. She expressed awareness of the complications and suggested a meeting with you before accepting if you're willing. A meeting with my mother in my hospital about working together. "Schedule it," I said, though my stomach churned. "Neutral ground, your office perhaps." The day arrived too quickly. I wore my white coat like armor, arriving early to claim the psychological advantage of already being seated. Janet would moderate, ensuring professionalism. My mother entered, looking older, grayer, somehow smaller than memory suggested. She wore a conservative suit and carried herself with unfamiliar humility. When she saw me, she stopped in the doorway. "Hello, Christa." "Patricia." Using her first name felt necessary, a boundary established immediately. She flinched but nodded. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Janet gestured for her to sit. The three of us formed an awkward triangle, years of dysfunction crowding the professional space. "I'll be direct," I began. "Why here of all the hospitals in the country, why apply to mine?" My mother met my eyes steadily. "Because this is where I failed you most profoundly, where my priorities revealed themselves in the starkest terms. I've spent 8 years in therapy learning to face that failure. Working here, helping other families avoid our mistakes, feels like the only meaningful atonement available." "Atonement," I repeated, "not reconnection, not access to your successful daughter." "I forfeited any right to claim connection to your success when I chose a party over your life. I'm not here as your mother. I'm here as someone who understands exactly how families can fail patients, because I was that failure." "And if I said I couldn't work with you?" She straightened slightly. "Then I'd withdraw my acceptance immediately. Your peace matters more than my atonement." The simplicity of her answer surprised me. No guilt trips, no manipulation, just acknowledgement of my right to choose. "Tell me about your therapy," I said, curious despite myself. She took a breath. "Individual therapy twice a week for 8 years. Group therapy for parents of estranged children. Specialist trauma therapy to understand how I became someone who could abandon her dying child. The diagnosis was complex: generational trauma, narcissistic traits, golden child syndrome by proxy through Sarah. I'm not offering these as excuses, just context." "And Dad?" "We divorced 5 years ago. He couldn't accept the therapy process, preferred maintaining the fiction that we were good parents. He remarried someone who reinforces the narrative. I didn't know. You had no reason to. We forfeited the right to burden you with our lives when we failed to show up for yours. Janet watched our exchange carefully. Christa, what do you need to feel comfortable with this arrangement if Patricia accepts the position? I thought carefully. Clear boundaries. We interact only in group professional settings. No attempts at personal relationship. No discussing family matters at work. No leveraging the position to access my life. Complete transparency with HR about our relationship and ongoing monitoring of the dynamic. I agreed to all of that, my mother said quickly. I'd also suggest monthly check-ins with HR to ensure I'm maintaining appropriate boundaries. And Sarah, I asked. She's a resident here. I've already discussed this with her. Same boundaries apply. I'm here to serve the hospital's families, not repair my own. We talked for another hour, establishing protocols and expectations. My mother was articulate about her vision for the family services program, passionate about preventing the failures that had defined our relationship. Despite myself, I was impressed. I'll agree to a trial period, I said finally, 6 months. If boundaries are maintained and the work is beneficial, we can reassess. If not, one of us needs to leave and it won't be me. Understood and accepted, she said formally. Janet stood signaling the meeting's end. As my mother gathered her things, she paused. Christa, I know I have no right to say this, but I'm incredibly proud of what you've built here. The programs you've created will save lives mine helped endanger. That means something. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She left without expecting more. Janet turned to me. That was remarkably mature of both of you. Trauma either breaks you or builds extraordinary coping skills, I said. We're about to find out which way this goes. The announcement of Patricia Mitchell as Director of Patient Family Services sent ripples through the hospital. Everyone knew our history now. Some saw it as inspirational, a family finding healing through service. Others worried about drama and dysfunction spreading. Sarah cornered me in the on-call room that night. Are you insane? She demanded. Mom, here working with us. She has the qualifications. The committee chose her independently. I just agreed not to block it. But why, after everything? I sat on the narrow bed, exhausted by the emotional weight of the day. Because maybe people can change Sarah. You did. I did. Maybe she has too. Or maybe she's manipulating the situation to get close to you again. Then we'll find out quickly and handle it. But what if she's genuine? What if she can actually help families avoid our pain? Don't those families deserve her insights, regardless of our personal history? Sarah sank down beside me. When did you become the optimist? I'm not optimistic. I'm strategic. Having her here contained by professional boundaries might be better than wondering what she's doing elsewhere. At least here I can monitor the situation. Or it'll blow up spectacularly. Also possible, but I've survived worse explosions. We sat in silence, two sisters who'd found unexpected peace contemplating their mother's proximity. The hospital hummed around us, lives being saved, families gathering in waiting rooms, the constant cycle of crisis and healing. For what it's worth, Sarah said eventually, I think you're brave, braver than I would be. Or more foolish. Maybe they're the same thing sometimes. My pager buzzed. Emergency surgery needed. I stood transforming back into Dr. Mitchell, Chief of Surgery, where the wounds were physical and the healing straightforward. Want to scrub in, I offered. Good teaching case. Really? Sarah's face lit up. We'd never operated together, maintaining our careful distance. Really? Maybe if we're testing boundaries with Mom, we should test our own too. Walking to the OR together felt surreal. The sister who'd once tried to destroy my career now learning beside me. The mother who'd abandoned me during surgery now hired to support other families. The neat categories of victim and villain blurring into something more complex. The patient was a 16-year-old with acute appendicitis. Her parents hovered anxiously, terrified but present. As we prepared for surgery, I saw my mother in the hallway, already working with the family services team to support them. She caught my eye briefly, nodding professionally before focusing on the scared parents, doing the job she'd failed to do for her own family, but doing it well. "Ready, Dr. Mitchell?" the scrub nurse asked. I looked at Sarah suited up and eager to learn, at the OR where Dr. Martinez had saved me, at the hallway where my mother now counseled frightened families. "Ready," I said, and pushed through the doors to do what I did best: save lives, teach others, and build something meaningful from the ashes of what had burned. The surgery went perfectly. The girl would recover fully surrounded by parents who'd never left her side. And somewhere in the hospital, my mother would document the case, learning from families who showed up so she could teach others to do the same. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't reconciliation, it was something more practical: transformation of pain into purpose for all of us in our own ways. Time would tell if it could last. 6 months into my mother's tenure, the hospital board reviewed our family services program with glowing praise. Patricia Mitchell had revolutionized how we supported families during medical crises. Her workshops on recognizing dysfunction were standing room only. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, least of all her. Sarah had progressed to her 3rd year of residency, earning recognition for her research on emergency medicine communication. She'd found her niche, not competing with my surgical skills, but complementing them with her gift for managing difficult family dynamics during traumas. We'd operated together several times now, a functional professional relationship that carefully avoided personal territory. The Mitchell women, when attending, joked, covering all aspects of emergency care: surgical, emotional, and familial. If only he knew the price we'd paid for that coverage. July 1st brought new beginnings. The annual influx of fresh residents, eager and terrified in equal measure. As chief, I personally welcomed each class, remembering my own orientation day and the dreams I'd carried. This year's group included the usual mix: Ivy League graduates with pristine records, international medical graduates bringing diverse perspectives, non-traditional students who'd fought for their spots. I reviewed their files the night before, seeing myself in their struggles and ambitions. 8 new souls for the meat grinder. Dr. Harrison, now my deputy chief, commented as we prepared the orientation materials. 8 future healers, I corrected, who will learn that surgery is as much about humanity as technique. The orientation schedule was packed: hospital tours, EMR training, procedure workshops, but I always started with the same session, the patient perspective, where I shared my own near-death experience and how it shaped my approach to medicine. No one dozed through that presentation. The morning of orientation, I arrived early to find the auditorium already buzzing. New residents clustered nervously, white coats pristine and unmarked by the battles ahead. I remembered that feeling. The weight of the coat, the imposter syndrome, the desperate hope of belonging. "Welcome, doctors," I began from the podium, watching 8 faces turn toward me with mixtures of awe and anxiety. "I'm Dr. Mitchell, Chief of Surgery. Before we dive into policies and procedures, I want to tell you a story about a teenage girl who almost died in this hospital because her family couldn't see past their own priorities." I told my story simply, without embellishment. The graduation party that mattered more than symptoms. The surgery that saved my life. The volunteer work to pay bills. The decision to pursue medicine born from abandonment and transformed into purpose. Their faces shifted from polite interest to genuine engagement. "Each of you will treat patients whose families fail them," I continued, "whose pain gets dismissed as drama, whose symptoms get minimized as attention-seeking. Your job is to see past the family dynamics to the person who needs help. Because that person might be dying while everyone around them looks away." Questions followed. thoughtful probing revealing which residents would likely excel. I answered honestly about the challenges of emergency surgery, the emotional toll of constant crisis, the rewards of saving lives others had written off. No, I said, transitioning to lighter material. Let's talk about surviving your first year. Dr. Harrison will cover the technical aspects, but first I want to introduce someone who's become integral to our residency support system. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, our third-year resident and founder of our peer mentorship program. Sarah rose from the audience confident in her progression from uncertain applicant to accomplished resident. She'd created the mentorship program independently, pairing new residents with seniors who'd navigated similar challenges. Her presentation was polished, warm, and showed no trace of our complicated history. The morning proceeded smoothly until lunch break. I was discussing call schedules with Dr. Harrison when my assistant appeared looking concerned. Dr. Mitchell, there's someone in the lobby insisting they're here for orientation. Security's not sure how to handle it. My blood chilled. Something in her expression warned me this wasn't a simple misunderstanding. Who is it? She says her name is Sarah Mitchell, that she's a new resident, but she glanced meaningfully toward where Dr. Sarah Mitchell was mentoring new residents. That's obviously not right. The world tilted. It couldn't be. The odds were astronomical, but somehow I knew. I'll handle it, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Have security keep her in the lobby until I arrive. I found Sarah, my Sarah, the resident Sarah, and pulled her aside. We have a situation, I said quietly. There's someone in the lobby claiming to be Sarah Mitchell here for residency orientation. Her face went pale. No, that's not how... I don't know, but we need to handle this professionally, together. We walked to the lobby in tense silence. Through the glass doors, I saw her. Another Sarah, this one in her early 30s, clutching orientation paperwork and arguing with security. My mind raced through possibilities until landing on one that made horrible sense. Oh my God, Sarah breathed beside me. Is that... I think so, I said, though I'd never met her. The resemblance to our mother was unmistakable. Dad's other daughter, our half-sister. The ultimate family secret whispered about, but never confirmed. Dad's affair during Mom's pregnancy with Sarah, resulting in another daughter given the same name by a mistress with a cruel sense of irony. The reason our parents' marriage had been strained long before my medical crisis provided the final break. What do we do? Sarah asked, looking younger than her years. We handle it like professionals, I said, though my heart hammered. She's either legitimately here for orientation, in which case she's our colleague, or she's not, in which case security removes her. Either way, we don't make a scene. We entered the lobby together. The other Sarah, Sarah Chen according to her paperwork, turned toward us with defiant eyes that could have been mine or Sarah's or our father's. I'm Dr. Christa Mitchell, Chief of Surgery, I said formally. I understand there's some confusion about your orientation. No confusion, she said, chin lifted. I matched here. Emergency medicine, I have all the documentation. I reviewed her papers. Everything appeared legitimate. Sarah Chen, MD, matched to our program through the standard process. The selection committee hadn't flagged the name similarity because Chen was common enough, and no one knew to look for our father's secret. I see, I said carefully, and you're aware that we have another Dr. Sarah Mitchell in our program? My half-sister, she said bluntly. Yes, I know, just as I know you're my other half-sister. Surprise. Sarah, my Sarah, made a sound between a gasp and a laugh. This is insane. You applied here knowing we were here. I applied here because it's the best emergency medicine program in the region, Sarah Chen replied. The fact that my father's other family works here is coincidental. Coincidental, I repeated flatly. You expect us to believe that... I expect you to honor the match process, she said, steel in her voice. I earned this spot without any help from the father who abandoned me or the family he chose over mine. Check my application. I never mentioned the connection. She was right. I'd reviewed every residency application personally. Sarah Chen from California, strong credentials, no mention of family in medicine. Either she'd hidden the connection deliberately or the selection committee had achieved the most ironic match in history. Fine, I said, making an executive decision. Dr. Chen, welcome to orientation. We'll sort out the personal complications later. For now, you're a resident who needs to attend the afternoon sessions. Dr. Sarah Mitchell will show you to the auditorium. Both Sarahs stared at me. Then my Sarah, showing the professionalism I'd come to expect, nodded. Of course. Dr. Chen, please follow me. You'll want to grab lunch quickly. The afternoon sessions are intensive. They left together. Two sisters who shared a father and name, and now a workplace. I stood in the lobby trying to process the surreal addition to our already complicated family dynamic. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Mom, heard there was an incident in the lobby. Do you need support? The irony of my mother offering support for a family crisis almost made me laugh. Instead, I typed back, handled, we'll brief you later. Because of course she'd need to know. As director of family services, she'd inevitably interact with this new Sarah. Our dysfunction had just added another layer. I returned to find the afternoon session underway. Dr. Harrison had taken over demonstrating proper surgical techniques on practice models. The new residents focused intently, including Sarah Chen, who'd claimed a spot in the back row, far from her half-sister, I noticed. During the break, I pulled HR aside for an emergency consultation. They confirmed what I'd suspected. We had no policies preventing half-siblings from working in the same program, especially when they had different last names. As long as both remained professional, no rules were broken. Though, the HR director added dryly, this might be the most complex family dynamic we've ever navigated. The Mitchell family could be its own case study. Please don't give anyone ideas, I muttered. The rest of orientation proceeded without incident. Sarah Chen proved herself attentive and competent, asking intelligent questions and demonstrating solid medical knowledge. If she felt the weight of scrutiny, she didn't show it. At day's end, I gathered both Sarahs in my office. They sat at opposite ends of my couch, the family resemblance obvious now that I looked for it. Let's establish ground rules, I began. Dr. Chen, you've entered a complicated situation. Dr. Sarah Mitchell and I have worked hard to maintain professional boundaries, despite our personal history. We'll need to extend that same professionalism to include you. I'm not here to cause drama, Sarah Chen said. I'm here to train in emergency medicine. The fact that we share DNA is irrelevant to my career goals. Is it? Sarah asked pointedly. You could have matched anywhere. You chose here. I chose excellence. That it comes with biological complications is unfortunate, but not disqualifying. I studied this new sister looking for signs of deception or agenda, but she seemed genuine in her focus on medicine rather than family. What about our father? I asked. Does he know you're here? Richard murmured. We haven't spoken since I turned 18 and he stopped paying court-ordered support. I'm no more interested in him than you are. The casual use of his first name, the dismissal of his relevance, she was definitely our sister. All right, I decided. Here's how this works. Professional courtesy at all times. No discussing family matters at work. No leveraging relationships for favoritism or sabotage. HR will monitor the situation. Any deviation from professionalism results in consequences. Agreed. Both Sarahs nodded. Good. Dr. Chen, you'll be assigned to different rotations than Dr. Mitchell whenever possible. Not as punishment, but to minimize complications. Dr. Mitchell, I trust you to help orient her to the program without letting personal feelings interfere. Of course, Sarah said, though her jaw was tight. After they left, I slumped in my chair. 3 sisters, 1 hospital, infinite complications. At least Sarah Chen hadn't tried to hack my computer or destroy my career. Yet. My phone rang. Patricia. I heard, she said without preamble, Richard's other daughter is here. You knew about her. I knew he had another child. Same name, born 3 months after Sarah. His little joke, I suppose. I didn't know she'd gone into medicine. Neither did we until 2 hours ago. How are you handling it? The question felt surreal coming from my mother, but her tone was professional, concerned about hospital dynamics rather than personal pain. Professionally, what else can we do? She earned her spot. We'll manage the complications. If you need the family services team to provide support, we'll let you know. I cut her off. For now, we maintain boundaries and see how it develops. That evening, I found myself in the cafeteria, exhausted by the day's revelations. The new residents clustered at tables, bonds already forming through shared anxiety. Sarah Chen sat alone reading a medical journal while eating. Against my better judgment, I approached. "How was your first day?" I asked, sitting across from her. She looked up surprised. "Educational in multiple ways." "I imagine this wasn't how you pictured orientation." "Actually," she said, closing the journal, "it went better than expected. I thought there'd be more drama, screaming, accusations. Instead, you handled it professionally. We've had practice with complicated family dynamics." "So I gather, your mother runs family services." Sarah told me during the tour, "The Mitchell women really have cornered the market on emergency care here." "Unintentionally, I assure you." She studied me with eyes that could have been mine in different circumstances. "Can I ask you something off the record, sister?" Sister. The words felt strange, but I nodded. "How do you do it? Work with people who hurt you, build success alongside them." I thought about the question, about the years of therapy and growth it had taken to reach this point. You transform the pain into purpose. You maintain boundaries. You remember that the best revenge is a life well lived. And sometimes, I admitted, you fake it until the professionalism becomes real. That's either very mature or very damaged. Probably both. Welcome to the Mitchell family, Dr. Chen. It's complicated, but we make excellent doctors. She smiled, then the first genuine expression I'd seen. Maybe that's enough. The excellent doctor part. It has to be, I agreed. Everything else is just noise. I left her to her dinner and her studies, returning to my office where charts awaited review. 3 sisters now walked these halls. One who'd been abandoned, one who'd been golden, one who'd been secret. All of us finding our ways in medicine, transforming different wounds into the same calling. The universe's sense of humor remained intact, but maybe we were all exactly where we needed to be. 3 months into the new academic year, our unlikely family constellation had found its rhythm. Sarah Chen proved herself an exceptional resident, skilled, dedicated, and deliberately distant from family drama. She'd earned respect from attendings who didn't know our connection and maintained cordial professionalism with those who did. My sister Sarah had evolved into a senior resident mentor, guiding junior residents through the program's challenges with empathy, born from her own struggles. She and Sarah Chen occasionally worked together, their interactions formal but functional. Progress by our standards. Patricia had expanded the family services program into a nationally recognized model. Hospitals across the country requested her training materials on supporting dysfunctional families during medical crises. The irony of my mother teaching others what she'd failed to do personally never quite faded, but her genuine dedication to the work earned my grudging respect. The morning that changed everything started quietly. I was reviewing surgical schedules when my assistant knocked urgently. "Dr. Mitchell, there's a situation in the lobby. A man claiming to be your father is causing a disturbance." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. "My father, Richard Mitchell, he's agitated, demanding to see you and both Dr. Sarah Mitchell's. Security's with him, but he's refusing to leave." I hadn't seen my father in 5 years, not since the divorce. According to family gossip, he'd remarried quickly to a woman who reinforced his victim narrative. The misunderstood patriarch whose ungrateful daughters had abandoned him. "Have security hold him. I'll be right down." I called Sarah first, then Patricia. Within minutes, we converge in the security office. Mother, daughters, and the half-sister, none of us had expected. Through the monitor, we could see Richard in the lobby, older and grayer, but still radiating the entitled energy I remembered. "What's he doing here?" Sarah asked, her face pale. Patricia's expression was stone. "I have a restraining order. He shouldn't be within 500 feet of me." "That explains why he's demanding to see his daughters instead," I said. "Sarah, did you know he was coming?" Sarah Chen shook her head. "I haven't spoken to him since high school. I don't know how he even knows I'm here." "Social media," Patricia said quietly. "He follows hospital news religiously. Your orientation photo was in the newsletter." We watched Richard pace the lobby, gesticulating wildly at security. Even without audio, his agitation was clear. "What does he want?" Sarah asked. "Money, probably," Patricia answered. "His new wife has expensive tastes and his business has been struggling. He's been calling distant relatives, trying to leverage family connections. So he shows up at the hospital where all 3 daughters work." I laughed bitterly. "Bold move." "Desperate move," Patricia corrected. "He knows you're all successful. In his mind, you owe him for the genetic contribution." Sarah Chen spoke for the first time. "We can't leave him in the lobby. It's disruptive to patients and families." She was right. Already people were recording on their phones. The last thing we needed was hospital chief's family drama going viral. "I'll handle it," I decided. "As chief, it's my responsibility to maintain hospital order." "I'll come with you," Sarah said immediately. "Me too," Sarah Chen added, surprising us all. "He wants to see his daughters. Let him see what his daughters became without him." Patricia touched my arm. "Be careful. He's masterful at manipulation, especially when cornered." The 3 of us, the abandoned daughter, the golden child, and the secret, walked to the lobby in formation. Richard spotted us through the glass doors, his face cycling through expressions like a slot machine seeking the winning combination. "My girls," he exclaimed as we approached, arms spread as if expecting embraces. "Look at you all, doctors. I'm so proud." "Well, Mr. Mitchell," I said formally, not moving closer, "you're causing a disturbance. I need you to leave." His face fell into practiced hurt. "Is that any way to greet your father after all these years?" "You stopped being our father when you stopped acting like one," Sarah said coldly. "What do you want?" "To see my daughters. To celebrate your success. Is that so wrong?" "Yes," Sarah Chen said flatly, "especially since you've never acknowledged me publicly. I'm only your daughter when it's convenient." Richard's mask slipped slightly. "Sarah, Chen, sweetheart, that's not fair. Your mother kept you from me." "My mother raised me alone while you paid the minimum court-ordered support and told everyone I didn't exist. Don't rewrite history now that I'm useful." "You're all being poisoned against me," Richard said, voice rising. "First Patricia with her therapy nonsense. Now this. I'm your father. I have rights." "You have no rights here," I said firmly. "This is my hospital. You're trespassing. Leave now or security will escort you out." "Your hospital?" He laughed nastily. "Built on my genetics, my DNA. All 3 of you owe your intelligence to me." "We owe you nothing," Sarah said, stepping forward. "I spent years in therapy learning that. Christa nearly died while you celebrated my graduation. You tried to steal her inheritance. You abandoned Sarah Chen before she was born. Genetics don't make you a father. Presence does, and you were never present for any of us." Richard's face flushed. "I was building a business providing you ungrateful—" Stop." My voice cut through his building tirade. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. Now. If you return, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. If you contact any of us at work, I'll pursue harassment charges. If you want a relationship with your daughters, you go to therapy and do the work. Until then, we're done." "You can't—" "Security," I called. 2 officers stepped forward. "Please escort Mr. Mitchell off hospital property. If he returns, call the police." Richard looked between us, searching for weakness. Finding none, his shoulders sagged. "This isn't over. You're my children, my legacy. You can't just erase me. Watch us, Sarah Chen said quietly. Security led him away, his protests echoing through the lobby. The three of us stood together, an unlikely unit forged by confronting the man who'd failed us all differently, but equally. Well, Sarah Chen said after a moment, that was intense. Sarah laughed, slightly hysterical. That's one word for it. Are you both okay? I asked, looking between my sisters. And they were both my sisters, I realized. Different mothers, same father, but sisters nonetheless. I'm good, Sarah Chen said. Actually, better than good. I've waited 20 years to tell him off. Oh, same, Sarah agreed. Though I'm sorry you had to see that. It's your first year here. You shouldn't have to deal with our family drama. Our family drama, Sarah Chen corrected. I'm a Mitchell too, remember the secret one, but still family. Something shifted in that moment. The careful professional distance we'd maintained cracked slightly, revealing possibility underneath. Coffee, I suggested. I think we've earned a debrief. We ended up in my office. Three sisters who'd never shared space by choice before. The awkwardness was palpable, but not unbearable. So, Sarah Chen said, breaking the silence, that's our father. That's him, Sarah confirmed. Oh, charming, right? I see where we get our stubbornness, she observed, though thankfully not our ethics. Nature versus nurture, I added. We got his drive but learned compassion elsewhere. Speaking of elsewhere, Sarah said carefully, Mom's probably freaking out. Should one of us check on her? The casual reference to Mom in front of Sarah Chen felt loaded, but she handled it gracefully. You should go, she told Sarah. I know it's complicated, but she's still your mother. Mine's in California, probably wine-drunk and unaware of today's drama. Sarah left to find Patricia, leaving me alone with this sister I'd never expected. This is weird, I said. Extremely, she agreed, but also kind of nice having sisters who understand the Richard Mitchell experience. We could start a support group. Daughters of Narcissists in Medicine, DONEM, could be a bestseller. We both laughed, the tension breaking slightly. Can I ask you something? And she said, do you regret letting me stay in the program? No, I answered honestly. You're an excellent resident. You've maintained boundaries. You've earned your place. The fact that we share DNA is just complicated background noise. Even after today, especially after today, you stood with us against him. That matters. She nodded slowly. I've spent my whole life wondering about you two, the chosen daughters, the ones he claimed publicly. I hated you for a long time. Understandably. But seeing the reality, how he treated you, how you've all survived and thrived despite him, it changes things. We're all survivors of the same man's failures, just in different ways. Different wounds, same source. I agreed. Is it okay if I sometimes join you and Sarah for coffee? Not forcing a relationship, just acknowledging what we share. I think that would be okay, I said carefully. We'll take it slow, see what develops naturally. A knock interrupted us. Sarah returned with Patricia, who looked shaken but determined. He's gone, Patricia reported. Security has his photo. He won't get past the lobby again. Are you all right? I asked the question, feeling strange, directed at my mother. I will be. Seeing him brings back difficult memories, but my therapist says confronting those memories is part of healing. She looked at Sarah Chen. I'm sorry you had to experience that on your first year. I'm not, Sarah Chen said firmly. It felt like closure, all of us standing together refusing his manipulation. That's powerful. Patricia studied her. This other daughter evidence of betrayal and pain. You're right, it is powerful. Richard always maintained control by keeping us separated. Your mother and I were pitted against each other just like he pitted the girls against each other. But here, we all are successful despite him. Because of his absence, not despite it, I added, we became who we are by filling the void he left. The five of us stood in my office. 3 sisters, 1 mother learning to mother, and the ghost of a father we'd collectively rejected. It wasn't a happy family reunion. It was something more complicated, but perhaps more valuable recognition of shared survival and the choice to move forward. I should get back to rounds, Sarah Chen said eventually, but thank you for including me, for standing up to him, for being sisters when you didn't have to be. After she left, Sarah, Patricia, and I remained. That was unexpected, Patricia said softly. Everything about our family is unexpected, Sarah replied. But maybe that's okay. Maybe unconventional is what we do best. We certainly haven't followed any traditional patterns. I agreed. Patricia straightened her jacket, transforming back into the professional. I should return to family services. We have a workshop this afternoon on supporting families through crisis. The irony hung unspoken but acknowledged. After she left, Sarah and I sat in companionable silence. So, she said eventually, 3 sisters. 3 sisters, I confirmed. Think we can handle it. I think we can handle anything at this point. We've survived attempted murder by appendix criminal harassment, parental abandonment, and public confrontation. Adding a surprise sister seems almost anticlimactic. Never say that. The universe accepts challenges. We both laughed, dark humor born from dark experiences. For what it's worth, Sarah said, standing to leave, I'm proud of how you handled that. How we all handled it. 5 years ago, this would have been a disaster. Today, it was just Tuesday. Which growth, I agreed. Messy, painful, complicated growth. The only kind the Mitchell women know. She left for rounds, and I returned to my desk. The surgical schedule still needed review. The endless responsibilities of running a department still demanded attention. But something fundamental had shifted. We weren't just colleagues navigating family dysfunction anymore. We were sisters, all 3 of us, choosing connection over isolation. Patricia wasn't just atoning anymore, but actively participating in our healing. And Richard, the ghost that had haunted all our stories, had been exorcised by our collective refusal to let him matter. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen. Thanks for today. Same time next week for coffee. I smiled and typed back, it's a date, sister. The universe might enjoy its cosmic jokes, throwing surprise siblings and family confrontations into our carefully constructed lives. But we were Mitchell women. We transformed chaos into purpose, pain into power, and dysfunction into fuel for excellence. And now, apparently, we did it together. 5 years had passed since Richard's dramatic expulsion from the hospital. 5 years of careful relationship, building professional growth, and the strange alchemy of transforming a broken family into something functional if unconventional. I stood in the renovated hospital auditorium, preparing for the dedication ceremony of the Martinez Center for Patient Advocacy. Dr. Elena Martinez, now 75 and officially retired but still fierce in her commitment to medicine, would cut the ribbon on the comprehensive program we'd built together. It combined emergency surgical care with family support services research on medical dismissal and training programs for healthcare providers. Nervous? Sarah asked, adjusting her attending physician coat. She'd completed residency 2 years ago, choosing to stay on staff as an emergency medicine specialist. Her research on family communication during medical crises had become required reading in medical schools nationwide. Excited, I corrected. This is everything we've worked toward. Sarah Chen approached with a tablet, now in her final year of residency and already fielding fellowship offers. The Times health reporter wants a quote about the center's origin story. How much do you want me to share? The truth? I said simply. A teenager nearly died from medical dismissal. She survived to become a surgeon. Her sister, who contributed to that dismissal, became a doctor to make amends. Their mother, who failed them both, now teaches others to succeed. And a surprise half-sister joined them to prove that healing happens in unexpected ways. The full Mitchell saga. Sarah Chen smiled. I'll make it sound less like a soap opera. It is a soap opera, Sarah laughed. Just one with medical degrees and research publications. Patricia approached impeccable as always in her director's suit. The years had softened her in ways that made her more accessible to the families she served. Her program had become the gold standard, though she never forgot its origin in her own failures. "The families are gathering," she reported, including Mrs. Peterson. "She's holding court by the coffee station, telling anyone who'll listen about her girls." "As she should," I said warmly. At 92, Mrs. Peterson had outlived most of her contemporaries, but remained sharp and proud of the family she'd chosen to nurture. The auditorium filled with colleagues, patients, families, and media. The Mitchell women, all four of us, had become a symbol of something larger than our individual stories. Proof that dysfunction didn't have to be destiny, that families could be rebuilt in different configurations, that professional purpose could arise from personal pain. Dr. Martinez took the podium first, her voice still commanding attention. 13 years ago, I saved a young woman's life in our emergency department. What I didn't know then was that she would save countless more through her vision, dedication, and refusal to let others suffer as she had. She spoke about the center's programs, the research initiatives, the lives already impacted, but her closing remarks went deeper. Medicine teaches us that healing isn't always about returning to what was. Sometimes it's about building something entirely new from the broken pieces. The Martinez Center represents that philosophy, and the Mitchell family embodies it. When my turn came to speak, I looked out at the assembled crowd. Uncle Robert sat in the front row, having become our unofficial family patriarch after Richard's banishment. The entire Broke pre-med brigade had come. Jennifer from her pediatric practice, David from his psychiatry residency, Amit from his cardiology fellowship, and Maria from her community clinics. They'd remained my chosen family, the ones who'd shown me that support didn't require blood ties. The Martinez Center exists because a teenager almost died alone, I began, because her family chose celebration over crisis, because that failure created a determination to ensure no one else would face medical emergency without advocacy. I told our story honestly, the abandonment, the struggle, the unexpected reconnections. Sarah's journey from golden child to compassionate physician. Patricia's transformation from neglectful mother to fierce advocate for families. Sarah Chen's arrival as proof that secrets eventually surface but don't have to destroy. "We can't change our past," I continued, "but we can choose how it shapes our future. Every patient who receives better care because their symptoms are believed, every family that stays united through crisis instead of fracturing, every healthcare provider trained to see past bias to the person in pain. They're all part of rewriting our story." The ribbon cutting was ceremonial but emotional. Dr. Martinez and I held the giant scissors together, mentors and mentee linked by a night 13 years ago when she'd refused to give up on a dying girl. As the ribbon fell and applause erupted, I caught sight of someone unexpected in the back of the room. Richard stood in the doorway, older and diminished, watching from the threshold he was legally prohibited from crossing. Security moved toward him, but I held up a hand. He wasn't causing disruption, just observing what his daughters had built without him. Our eyes met across the room. The father who'd failed and the daughter who'd flourished. He nodded once, perhaps in acknowledgement or apology or simple recognition, then turned and left. "Did you want to?" Sarah started. "No," I said firmly. "Some bridges are meant to stay burned. Their ashes fertilize new growth." The reception buzzed with energy. Healthcare professionals from around the country examined our protocols. Families shared stories of how Patricia's programs had helped them, and medical students peppered the Mitchell sisters with questions about balancing family complexity with professional demands. Dr. Mitchell. A young resident approached nervously. "I'm starting my rotation next week. Any advice for someone whose family doesn't understand their career choice?" I smiled, remembering my own terror and determination. Find your chosen family, the mentors who see your potential, the peers who share your struggle, the patients who remind you why you're here. Build something meaningful from whatever foundation you have, even if it's just determination and spite. And remember, the best doctors are often those who've been patients first. As the evening wound down, the four Mitchell women found ourselves on the hospital's roof garden, a quiet space I'd had installed for staff respite. City lights twinkled below, and the sounds of emergency sirens reminded us that the work never stopped. "Did you ever imagine this?" Sarah Chen asked. "When you were 18 and dying, could you have pictured tonight?" "Never," I admitted. I couldn't imagine surviving, much less thriving. Definitely couldn't imagine us all here together, functional and supportive. Functional might be overstating it," Sarah teased. "We're still pretty weird." "Weird works," Patricia said softly. "I spent so many years trying to maintain a perfect family image. This, messy and honest and real, is so much better." "To weird," Sarah Chen raised her coffee cup in a toast. "To healing," Sarah added. "To chosen families," I contributed. "To second chances," Patricia finished. We drank to all of it. The pain that shaped us, the growth that changed us, the work that fulfilled us, and the unexpected bonds that sustained us. My pager buzzed. Emergency surgery needed. Even as chief, I still took calls, still felt the pull of the OR, where lives hung in balance. "Go," Sarah said. "Save a life. We'll clean up here." I left them on the rooftop. My mother and sisters, complicated and imperfect but present. In the elevator down, I thought about the 18-year-old girl who'd lain dying, abandoned and alone. She never could have imagined this life, chief of surgery at 35, published researcher mentor to struggling residents, and part of a family that chose reconstruction over resentment. The OR welcomed me with its familiar rhythms, a teenager with acute appendicitis parents hovering anxiously. As I scrubbed in, I heard Patricia's voice from the hallway, already working with the family to keep them calm and connected. Sarah would likely check on them between her own cases. Sarah Chen might stop by during rounds, adding another layer of support. The Martinez Center in action. Not just programs and protocols, but people who understood that healing happened best when no one faced crisis alone. "Ready when you are, Dr. Mitchell," the anesthesiologist said. I entered the OR with steady hands and clear purpose. Another life to save, another family to keep whole, another night of transforming old wounds into current purpose. The surgery went perfectly. The teenager would recover, surrounded by parents who'd never left her side, supported by programs born from failure but refined by determination. She'd never know how close she'd come to disaster or how many people had worked to ensure her different outcome. That was the point. To make exceptional care ordinary, to transform systematic dismissal into systematic support to ensure that no one else experienced what I had. Later, exhausted but satisfied, I found myself back in my office. The walls displayed degrees and awards, but the desk held what mattered most. The toy stethoscope from childhood dreams, a photo of the broke pre-med brigade at graduation. Mrs. Peterson's handwritten recipes for future doctor fuel, and a new addition. A picture from tonight of the 4 Mitchell women, no longer defined by our failures to each other, but by our choice to grow beyond them. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Martinez. "Proud of you, mija. The center is everything we dreamed and more. The girl I saved 13 years ago has saved so many others. Full circle, perfectly imperfect." I smiled, thinking about circles and imperfection and the strange beauty of lives rebuilt from rubble. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new patients, new opportunities to prove that dismissal didn't have to be destiny. But tonight I allowed myself this moment of satisfaction. The Mitchell women had rewritten our story from abandonment to advocacy, from isolation to integration, from brokenness to purpose. The universe might have started with a cosmic joke, a dying girl alone while her family partied. but we delivered the punchline. Sometimes the best families are the ones you build from the ashes of the ones that failed you. And sometimes even the ashes can learn to grow. The American Medical Association's annual conference buzzed with anticipation. I adjusted my microphone, looking out at thousands of healthcare professionals gathered to hear about the Martinez Method's nationwide implementation. 7 years ago, I began, 43 hospitals adopted our protocols. Today, that number is over 400. Emergency departments across the country now screen for histories of medical dismissal. Family support services have become standard, not optional, and most importantly, our research shows a 37% reduction in preventable deaths from dismissed symptoms. The presentation showcased data testimonials and implementation strategies, but the heart of it remained personal. The story of a family that failed, fractured, and eventually found its way to functionality through shared purpose. During the Q&A, a familiar hand rose. Sarah Chen, now Dr. Chen, completing her fellowship in emergency medicine and recruitment target for top hospitals nationwide. Dr. Mitchell, can you speak to how personal experience with medical trauma influences physician advocacy? I smiled at my half-sister's planted question designed to let me address the elephant that always accompanied our story. The best advocates are often those who've lived the problem. My near death from dismissed symptoms made me hyper-vigilant about believing patients. My sister Sarah's guilt about contributing to that dismissal made her an expert in family communication. Our mother's failure to show up during crisis made her passionate about teaching others to do better. And Dr. Chen's experience as a family secret made her exceptional at recognizing hidden dynamics that impact care. So trauma becomes expertise. Another questioner followed up. Processed trauma becomes expertise, I corrected. Unprocessed trauma perpetuates cycles. The difference is doing the work. Therapy, reflection, accountability, and choosing growth over bitterness. After the session, the Mitchell contingent gathered for dinner. Patricia, now remarried to a fellow therapist who understood her journey. Sarah, pregnant with her first child and determined to break generational patterns. Sarah Chen weighing offers from 3 hospitals wanting her to implement our protocols. And me, still single by choice, but rich in chosen family. Remember when we couldn't be in the same room without lawyers? Sarah joked, rubbing her belly. Remember when I tried to destroy your career? She added, never letting herself forget, even as we'd all forgiven. Remember when I didn't exist to any of you? Sarah Chen contributed. Remember when I left you to die, Patricia said quietly, the weight of it never fully lifting despite the work she'd done to atone. Yes, I said simply. I remember all of it, and I'm grateful. They looked at me in surprise. Grateful, Sarah asked. If our family had functioned normally, if you'd all shown up that night, if love had come easily and unconditionally, who would we be now? Not doctors saving lives, not advocates changing systems, not examples of how broken things can be rebuilt. We'd be ordinary, and ordinary doesn't drive revolutionary change. So thank you for the trauma, Sarah Chen asked wryly. Thank the trauma for the transformation, I corrected. Thank us for choosing transformation over stagnation. Mrs. Peterson, now 94 and still sharp, raised her water glass. She'd insisted on coming to see her girls present, though travel exhausted her. I've watched you all become who you are, she said, voice strong despite her age. And I want to say something. Family isn't just about blood or obligation or even presence. It's about choosing to grow together instead of apart. You 4 have done that in the hardest way possible, and this old woman is proud to have been part of it. To Mrs. Peterson, I said, raising my own glass, the woman who showed up when no one else did. To showing up, Sarah added. To second chances, Patricia contributed. To weird families that work, Sarah Chen finished. The next morning brought the announcement I'd kept secret. the AMA's Lifetime Achievement Award for contributions to emergency medicine and patient advocacy. At 37, I was their youngest recipient ever. But standing on that stage, accepting the award, I didn't feel young. I felt like I'd lived multiple lifetimes since that night in my childhood bedroom, dying alone while my family celebrated elsewhere. This award belongs to every patient whose pain was dismissed as drama, I said to the audience, to every family that failed and chose to do better, to every healthcare provider who learned that believing patients is the first step to healing them, and to a teenage girl who almost died because no one listened. She survived to make sure others wouldn't face the same. The standing ovation felt like closure to a chapter that began with isolation and ended with impact, but I knew the work continued. More protocols to develop, more providers to train, more families to support through crisis. Backstage, Sarah waited with my phone. "You need to see this." A text from an unknown number with a photo attached. A young woman in a hospital bed, surrounded by family holding a surgical drain, but smiling. The message read, "Dr. Mitchell, I'm the teenager from Seattle whose appendix burst last month. The hospital followed your protocols. They believed me even though I'd been called dramatic before. My family stayed together through it all. Thank you for making sure my story ended differently than yours." I stared at the photo, this stranger whose life had been saved by systems born from my near death. "You okay?" Sarah asked. "Yeah," I said, wiping away tears I hadn't expected, just remembering why we do this. To make our pain mean something, to make sure our pain stops with us. The Mitchell women returned to our respective hospitals, our ongoing work, our complicated but functional family. The cycles had broken, the patterns had shifted, and the cosmic joke had become cosmic justice. Not bad for a girl who wasn't supposed to survive the night. Not bad at all. Author's note: if you've ever felt dismissed, overlooked, or abandoned by family during your darkest moments, know this: your pain can become your power. Your survival can inspire others. And sometimes the best families are the ones you build from the ashes of the ones that failed you. Thank you for reading the Mitchell family's journey from dysfunction to purpose. May your own journey lead to healing, however that looks for you.